Chapter 240. Dawn Cloud Pavilion. She raised her brows and looked at the manager who was wiping off his cold sweat. What's that place? After he heard the name of the pavilion, the manager was stunned for a moment, and then he furiously stepped forward and kicked the attendant a few times. You bastard! Who told you not to be clean? You actually dared to sell a customer's mount to Dawn Cloud Pavilion, how hateful. Hiss. Ah. Manager, don't hit me. Young master, spare me. I won't dare do it again. The attendant cried as he begged. At this moment, he didn't have the slightest bit of joy from receiving the money from before. When he thought about how the red-clothed young master was still waiting for him to speak, the manager said with slight uneasiness, Dawn Cloud Pavilion is a place where the disciples of noble families and some cultivators in the city relax and play when they have nothing to do. It's different from ordinary places. Ferocious beasts or spirit beasts are purchased there, and customers are also killed there. When he heard this, Fengjiu's eyes narrowed, and then he stepped on the back of the attendant's injured and bleeding hand, and his cold voice sounded out like ice. How did you steal my mount? With Senior White's lazy disposition, even Bai Xiao might not be able to order it to leave, so how did this attendant get it to be sold at Dawn Cloud Pavilion? I put some medicine in the fish and prawns it ate, and then I used a cart to transport it away. At this moment, the attendant even had the heart to die. He originally thought that the customer wouldn't notice that his mount was missing so quickly, but who knew that he hadn't even had the time to run when the customer came looking for him. Fengjiu stretched out his hand and clasped it, and then one of the attendant's arms was removed. A miserable and shrill cry suddenly sounded out, and then the attendant fainted from the pain. The manager was shocked and hurriedly asked. He wouldn't die, right? Fengjiu glanced at the attendant on the ground and said, I only crippled one of his arms, he won't die. As soon as he finished speaking, he said, Where's Dawn Cloud Pavilion? Take me there. The manager swallowed his saliva and said, Young master, things that enter Dawn Cloud Pavilion can't be retrieved. Moreover, they aren't people to be trifled with. They are not to be trifled with, but I am. She glanced at the innkeeper and said, I lost my mount in your inn. I'll deal with you later. Hurry up and lead the way. Don't dilly-dally. In the end, the manager had no choice but to bring Chen Shi before Cloud Dawn Pavilion. It's here. Young master, I won't be going in. Fengjiu waved his hand, indicating for him to go back first. He then walked in and followed the attendant to the open-air beast fighting arena at the back. It was a coliseum surrounded by 3-meter-tall iron cages containing ferocious beasts. There were a total of 100 iron cages, each containing 100 ferocious beasts or spirit beasts. At this moment, there were cheers all around. The whole place looked very lively. Even the sound of betting and talking could be heard. Do you think that young Master Lu can tame this spirit horse? If I didn't see it with my own eyes, I really wouldn't be able to see that this fat horse has such great ability. That's right. It said that he bought it in the wee hours of the morning. Originally, no one paid attention to it because that fat horse had been lying lazily until those ferocious beasts were provoked by the people who shot it. They charged straight at that fat horse. At that time, everyone in the field thought that the fat horse was dead for sure. They didn't expect that it was actually knocked over. You guys came late and didn't see it. That scene made everyone stand up in an uproar. Heh, those aristocratic families' young masters are competing with that fat horse. Dawn Cloud Pavilion is also secretly happy. How much money did they earn? Chapter 241. At this moment, the young master in embroidered clothes suddenly pounced onto Senior White and hugged its neck before turning around with the intention of mounting it. However, Senior White flung him away, causing him to fly up into the sky, and then he somersaulted in midair before taking a few steps back and landing on the ground. At this moment, Senior White seemed to be slightly restless and uneasy. It kicked the ground with its hooves and hissed a few times in a low voice before suddenly charging towards the young master in embroidered clothes, and then it pounced onto the young master who'd just steadied himself and pressed him down onto its stomach. When they saw the young master in embroidered clothes being pressed down to the point his face flushed red and was unable to struggle free, everyone outside the arena roared with laughter, and their mixed laughter reverberated through the arena and was exceptionally loud. The young master in embroidered clothes was slightly embarrassed and annoyed by everyone's laughter. Coupled with the fact that he was unable to push the fat horse off his body, he was furious to the extreme and withdrew a dagger from the air before stabbing it fiercely at Senior White. Fengjiu's gaze went cold when he saw this scene, and then his finger moved slightly before a silver needle shot out with a swish. Hiss! The young master in embroidered clothes cried out in pain and gasped while the dagger fell from his hand. When he saw the trembling silver needle on his wrist, he shouted furiously. Who plotted against me? Everyone couldn't help but whisper when they saw the young master's movement of stabbing the needle had stopped because of his cry of pain, and the dagger in his hand had fallen to the ground. Meanwhile, Fengjiu tapped the tip of his foot on the ground and leaped up into the arena. Everyone saw a dazzling red-colored figure flash before their eyes, and then they saw the red-clothed figure flutter in midair before landing lightly on the ground in the next moment. The monstrous young man with a handsome appearance and noble aura stood in the arena with his hands behind his back. His chin was slightly raised while his clear eyes looked down with a peerlessly noble and breathtaking aura. Who's that? Why did he suddenly go in? This young man is really outstanding. Could it be that he's a disciple of a noble family? He doesn't seem to be a member of our Six Paths city, and I've never seen him before. Right when everyone was discussing this, the members of Dawn Pavilion walked out because of Fengjiu's sudden intrusion, and they were just about to ask about it when the red-clothed young man's voice sounded out from the arena. Old Bai, come here. Fengjiu called out. Lao Bai, who was lying on the ground and pressing down on the man in embroidered clothes, suddenly turned his head. When he saw Fengjiu, he screamed and ran over happily. Everyone had different expressions when they saw this scene. Their gazes landed on the red-clothed youth as they secretly sized him up. From the looks of it, this fat horse belonged to the red-clothed youth. But, if it was his, why would it be sold to Dawn Cloud Restaurant? Everyone's gazes looked towards the people from Dawn Cloud Restaurant, wanting to see how they would deal with this matter. Fengjiu patted Lao Bai's head and said, You don't have to rub against me. I'll take you back. This spirit beast belongs to our Clear Sky Restaurant. We can't let young master take it away. A middle-aged man walked over with his hands behind his back. He looked at the red-clothed Fengjiu and said. That's right. I haven't tamed it yet, so how can I let it go? The man in embroidered clothes walked over as well, and he stared at Fengjiu with a malicious expression. It was you who used silver needles to plot against me, right? How audacious of you! Fengjiu glanced at the man and laughed coldly. Are you sure it wasn't my old Bai who tamed you just now? When they heard this, the people in the surroundings chuckled. The man in embroidered clothes' face flushed red as well, and he shouted sternly at Fengjiu. How dare you! Chapter 242. The man in embroidered clothes groaned as he lay on the ground. Due to the intense pain from the kick to his abdomen, cold sweat instantly appeared on his forehead. He wanted to stand up, but he was unable to muster the strength to do so for a while. Everyone who saw this scene instantly fell silent, seemingly in disbelief. After all, the man in embroidered clothes was a disciple of the Lu family, and his strength and cultivation could be considered outstanding among his peers. But now, he was actually kicked to the ground by the red-clothed youth. How could they not be astonished? When the middle-aged man saw the red-clothed youth's kick, his eyes flickered, and a trace of astonishment flashed through his eyes. He slightly glanced to the side and sized up the red-clothed youth again. Perhaps it was because the red-clothed youth had sensed his gaze, but the red-clothed youth's eyes were cold as he looked at him. In that instant, he had the illusion that the person standing in front of him wasn't a youth, but a supreme king. The intimidating pressure and sharp aura that shot out from the youth's eyes caused his heart to involuntarily tremble. If he had originally thought that the youth might be a disciple of a noble family, then at this moment, he could conclude that the youth's background was definitely extraordinary. It was precisely because of this thought that his expression softened, and he said, "Young master, why don't we talk at the back?" At the same time, he made a gesture of invitation. However, at this moment, the man in embroidered clothes on the ground stood up with a gloomy expression. "Leave? Where do you think you're going? Do you really think that my Lu family is easy to bully? You want to leave after kicking me? No way." As soon as he finished speaking, his spiritual aura surged, and a wind blade formed in his palm. His body instantly swept towards Fengjiu, and at the same time, the wind blade in his hand also slashed towards her. Fengjiu, who had originally planned to follow the middle-aged man to the side of the exit, felt the sharp sound of the wind blade behind her. When she turned around, she saw the wind blade slashing towards her. Just as she was about to dodge, she saw Lao Bai swinging his ponytail and eagerly following beside her. If she dodged it, then that blade of air would definitely strike Senior White. When she thought up to here, her eyes narrowed while she condensed a strand of air with both hands to block the blade of air that assaulted her. Swish! It flashed by, and then her sleeve that she used to block the blade of air was sliced into pieces, revealing her snow-white wrists. His snow-white skin was so delicate that it could be broken by the wind. Almost in an instant, it caused the breathing of many men outside the arena to become much heavier. All of them stared at the red-clothed youth's devilishly handsome face and thought to themselves. This youth's appearance was so outstanding. If he were a woman, how beautiful would he be? Fengjiu only felt a slight pain on her face. She raised her finger and wiped it gently. Droplets of blood spread between her fingers. Seeing this, the corners of her lips slowly bloomed into an enchanting smile. That smile was like a poppy blooming in the spring breeze. It was too beautiful to behold, but it also revealed a bloodthirsty and dangerous aura. She narrowed her eyes, and a cold murderous aura spread out from her body in an instant. However, at this moment, the man in embroidered clothes did not seem to notice it. This was because he was also bewitched by the enchanting smile that bloomed on the lips of the person in front of him. Because of this, a hint of infatuation appeared in his eyes, and the anger from before completely disappeared. Chapter 243. Ah! The man in embroidered robes exclaimed. His entire body froze because his throat was tightly gripped by the young man in red. The young man's grip was so strong that it seemed as if his neck could be broken with just a little more force. This caused him to be extremely frightened. "Young master, you can't!" the middle-aged man exclaimed. If the young master of the Lu clan died here, not only would their Dawn Cloud Pavilion be in trouble, even the young man in red would not be able to bear the wrath of the Lu clan. Hiss! What is he trying to do? Don't tell me he wants to kill the young master of the Lu clan. Impossible, he doesn't have the guts. Kill him. He won't be able to survive. The crowd outside the pavilion discussed. They were shocked by the young man's actions. However, they all felt that he wouldn't dare to kill the young master of the Lu clan. After all, killing a young master of an aristocratic clan in the 6th Dao city was an open challenge to the aristocratic clan. As a mere outsider, he didn't have the guts to do so. Not only did the crowd think so, but even the young master of the Lu clan, whose throat was gripped by Fengjiu, also thought so. After the initial shock, he calmed down and looked at Fengjiu with a provocative gaze. "You want to kill me? Do you dare? Go out and ask around. Who in the 6th Dao city doesn't know about our Lu clan?" Only the middle-aged man from the Dawn Cloud Pavilion knew that the young man in red really wanted to kill. He didn't think that the young man in red wouldn't dare to kill the young master of the Lu clan. After all, young people were often impulsive. Sometimes, they didn't even consider the consequences of their actions. Feng Zhou's eyes narrowed. The corner of his lips slightly curved as he slowly said, "The Lu clan. Is it very powerful?" Her hand around the young master's throat gradually tightened. Because her hand was holding his throat up, the young master of the Lu clan couldn't help but stand on his tiptoes to relieve the suffocating feeling. As his face gradually turned purple, he couldn't even speak. Looking at the young man in red before him, a trace of panic and fear suddenly appeared in his heart. She revealed an almost strange and dangerous smile as she watched the young man in embroidered robes whose face was gradually turning purple and whose hands were tightly gripping her hand in an attempt to break free. "The last person who injured my face is already dead. His corpse was probably eaten by wild beasts until there was nothing left. Tell me, how do you want to die?" Seeing this scene, the middle-aged man didn't know what to say because he knew that if he continued to persuade the young master of the Lu clan, the young master in red would kill the young master of the Lu clan even faster. Seeing the situation was not good, he was thinking if he should ask the higher-ups to deal with this matter. Release the young master of SSSS. Several guards were originally standing guard outside, but when they heard that something had happened to their young master, one of them quickly returned to the residence to report, while the other three quickly came in to investigate. Sure enough, when he saw his young master being strangled by the red-clothed youth, he immediately leaped over the surrounding iron cages and rushed down. The two doctors. Chapter 244. This young man's looks are quite outstanding. His handsome appearance is rare. The man in red and wearing a devil's snare mask stared at Feng Zhou below with a burning gaze. Hearing this, the city lord's eyes flashed and he smiled. "Ghost Doctor, you may not know this, but there is a place for handsome men in Six Paths City. The men there are also very outstanding. How can the men in the handsome men's place have this young man's nobility and demonic charm? This young man is the real deal." The ghost doctor's burning gaze fell on Feng Zhou's snow-white wrist. His gaze moved up and swept across his beautiful neck. Then, he took in that exquisite yet demonic face. The more he looked, the more restless his heart became. Hearing this, the city lord of Six Paths City was secretly speechless. He didn't seem to have heard of the ghost doctor being a homosexual. But from the time he came into contact with the ghost doctor, he found that the ghost doctor was not interested in beauties, but was quite interested in handsome men. But, if it was a normal man, then it would be good. After all, what kind of man could the handsome men not have? But when it came to the red-clothed young man below, he was hesitant. Although he wanted to ask for more medicine from the ghost doctor and had to flatter him, as the city lord of Six Paths City, he couldn't do things too out of line. Otherwise, the impact would be too great. But, just as he was hesitating, he heard the ghost doctor's voice. "City Lord Chang, if you can help me get this young man, then, I won't treat you unfairly." Hearing this, the city lord was startled and looked at the ghost doctor beside him. His words were equivalent to a promise. To him, this was an opportunity. "Okay. I'll think of a way." He nodded in response, and saw the ghost doctor beside him looking down in surprise. Seeing this, he turned to look as well. The three guards who leaped into the arena rushed forward, brandishing their swords to attack the red-clothed youth. They wanted to force him to release his hands, but unexpectedly, he turned around and used the young master of the Lu family as a shield, letting the young master of the Lu family take a blow from his own guards. "Ah! Young master." The guard was shocked and his face turned pale. He was so scared that his whole body trembled. But at this moment, Feng Zhou kicked him in the head and he fainted. The other two wanted to step forward, but they did not dare to use their sabers for fear of hurting their young master. However, they were also sent flying by Feng Zhou in a few moves. They lay on the ground, howling in grief and unable to stand up. At this time, young Master Lu's face was pale and bloodless. He had been stabbed in the back. Blood gushed out and dyed his robe red. He was in so much pain that he broke out in a cold sweat. However, his throat was still gripped and he couldn't break free. At this time, Feng Nine stared at the young master of the Lu family, who was trembling in fear. She said in a lazy and bloodthirsty voice, "It's too easy for you to be strangled to death like this. How about we change the method? You, what are you trying to do? You should know that if I die, you won't be able to live either." Young Master Lu said with a trembling voice. "How about I let you have a taste of living a life worse than death?" Feng Zhou's light laughter was cold. As soon as his voice fell, he suddenly turned his hand and locked onto the young master's hands. He turned his whole body around and twisted his hands behind his back. Wherever her hands touched, there was the sound of bones cracking, accompanied by shrill screams that sounded louder and louder. Chapter 245. Young Master Lu was twisted into a ball on the ground. Nobody knew how he was folded. His arms and legs were twisted backward, and even his neck was twisted to one side. All the bones in his body seemed to have been crushed. Not only that, but the veins in his body seemed to be twitching. His chin was dislocated, and he could not speak. He could only shout and drool. Seeing the previously high-spirited young master of the Lu family become like this, everyone was shocked. Was this red-robed young man going against the Lu family? He dared to crush all the bones in young Master Lu's body and make him look like he was better off dead. If the people of the Lu family saw this, how angry would they be? When the middle-aged man saw this, he could not help but gulp. He was horrified. This red-robed young man's attack was too terrifying. Killing someone was as simple as nodding his head to the ground, but he had crushed all the bones in young Master Lu's body. He had also used some unknown method to twist young Master Lu's body into this state. Although young Master Lu was still alive, his current situation was simply worse than death. All the bones in his body were broken. He probably could not recover. If he could not recover, he would be like a cripple. How cruel was it for a cultivator to become a cripple? "Lao Bai, let's go." Feng Zhou patted the dragon horse beside him and was about to leave. However, how could it be so easy for her to leave now? "Sir, I'm afraid you can't leave like this," the middle-aged man said. He glanced at the twitching young Master Lu on the ground and said, "The people of the Lu family are not here yet. If you leave, I'm afraid we can't explain it to them." Hearing this, Feng Zhou stopped and glanced at him. He raised his eyebrows. "So, you want to stop me?" Before the middle-aged man could speak, he heard an angry roar coming from outside. That voice contained a powerful pressure that caused the entire area to tremble a few times. "Who dares to hurt a disciple of the Lu family?" A gray-robed old man rushed over as soon as he finished speaking. In the blink of an eye, he appeared in the middle of the field. When he saw young Master Lu lying on the ground with his body twisted, he flew into a rage. Pressure and a chilling aura instantly burst out from his body. "Who is it? Who dares to cripple my Lu family?" As he shouted with a grim voice, his sharp and gloomy gaze swept through the surroundings before descending onto the red-clothed young man. Because he recognized the middle-aged man was the manager of Dawn Pavilion, so it was naturally impossible for the middle-aged man to injure a member of his Lu clan. Then, only the red-clothed young man remained. Once he locked on to his target, he bent his palm, forming a claw that grabbed a gust of air and suddenly attacked Feng Zhou. The claw was filled with killing intent, causing people to tremble in fear. Feng Zhou, whose back was facing the gray-robed elder, had a cold glint in her eyes. With a slight movement of her hand, a sharp dagger appeared in her palm. A red figure flashed, and the sharp dagger instantly struck out, slashing towards the gray-robed elder. Hiss! With a gasp, The gray-robed old man quickly withdrew his hand and covered the deep cut on his wrist. His gaze on Fengjiu became increasingly gloomy. Ignorant brat. You dare to make an enemy of my Lu family? I think you're tired of living. Fengjiu curled her lips into a smile, but the smile did not reach her eyes. Old thing, I think you're the one who's tired of living. As soon as she finished speaking, the red figure rushed forward without warning. Her speed was so fast that the people inside and outside the field widened their eyes in shock. Whoosh! Chapter 246. Bang! The body fell to the ground with a heavy thud. The people outside the arena stood up in shock and looked at the scene in disbelief. Heavens! He killed the Lu clan's third elder. Hiss! It was an instant kill. That Lu clan's third elder was a fourth-level foundation establishment cultivator. He was killed by a young man in one move. What is the background of this young man? Could it be that his cultivation is stronger than the Lu clan's third elder? This is going to be a big problem. This young man is in big trouble. The commotion caused the entire place to fall into chaos. Everyone was discussing in low voices, and their shocked gazes fell upon the red-clothed young man. They were frightened by his viciousness and boldness, and even more so by his ability to kill a foundation establishment cultivator in an instant. Foundation establishment cultivators were not like spirit masters or great spirit masters. They were cultivators who had already stepped onto the path of immortality. They were cultivators who had lived for 200 years. They were cultivators who could make countless spirit masters and great spirit masters kneel on the ground in fear with a stomp of their feet. But now, they were killed by a young man in red. Not only were the people in the arena shocked, even City Lord Chang of Six Paths City was shocked by the young man in red's ruthlessness. There was no need to mention the fake ghost doctor who was staring at Fengjiu with covetous eyes. This young man is definitely not an ordinary person. After the shock, the city lord sighed and shook his head. He looked at the ghost doctor and said, I'm afraid this young man can't be touched. As the city lord of Six Paths City, he had seen countless people. He could see that the young man in red's ruthlessness and decisiveness was not something an ordinary family could cultivate. The young man knew that the old man was from the Lu clan and was a foundation establishment cultivator. But he dared to kill him in an instant. This boldness was definitely not something an ordinary noble child could have. The ghost doctor also saw it. Not to mention the city lord, he was also shocked by the young man in red's ruthlessness. But the more it was like this, the harder it was to get his hands on the young man. The obsession in his heart grew deeper. Originally, he was only interested in the young man in red because of his handsome appearance and extraordinary temperament. But now, his interest was completely aroused. Fengjiu in the arena narrowed his eyes and glanced at the old man who was already dead. His gaze swept past young Master Lu, who was twisted on the side. He coldly snorted and swept his eyes around his surroundings. His cold voice was filled with a cold aura. Who else wants to stop this young master from leaving? Why don't you step forward? When that clear and stern voice clearly entered the ears of the surrounding people, each and every one of them looked at him with a complicated expression, but no one dared to stand out and stop him. What a joke! He could even kill a foundation establishment cultivator in one move. How could they stop him? Wasn't that courting death? The middle-aged man from Dawn Cloud Restaurant looked at Fengjiu and didn't say anything. This was no longer a matter that Dawn Cloud Restaurant could interfere with. He had crippled the Lu clan's young master and killed the Lu clan's third elder. This news would soon spread to the Lu clan. At that time, thinking of this, his eyes flashed. How powerful was this young man? What kind of support did he have? He dared to kill the Lu clan's elder just like that. Chapter 247. What they didn't know was that in the Lu clan, an old man was running to the main courtyard with a horrified expression. As he ran, he shouted, "Patriarch! Patriarch, something bad has happened! Something bad has happened!" The old man's voice resounded in the Lu clan and attracted the attention of everyone in the clan. Everyone in the various courtyards came out to check. In the main courtyard, Patriarch Lu was talking with two elders. When they heard the voice outside, they were slightly surprised. "It seems to be fourth brother's voice," one of the elders said. He glanced at Patriarch Lu and said, "I'll go out and have a look." However, he had just stood up and hadn't walked out of the door when he saw the figure outside rush in. "Patriarch, something bad has happened. Third elder's longevity lamp has gone out." As soon as these words were spoken, the expressions of the three people in the room changed drastically. "What? How is that possible?" The three of them exclaimed in unison. Their voices were filled with disbelief and shock. "It really went out. It went out just now. His longevity lamp really went out. Moreover, eldest young master's longevity lamp is flickering. I'm afraid the situation is not good." When Patriarch Lu heard this, he strode out and shouted, "Guards! Guards! Where did third elder and eldest young master go? Does anyone know?" His voice spread in the clan, and a guard hurriedly came to report. "Patriarch, a guard who went out with eldest young master came back and said something happened to eldest young master in Yuyun restaurant. Third elder happened to be in the front courtyard and heard it, so he rushed over." Patriarch Lu's expression changed when he heard this, and he immediately said to the three elders behind him, "I'll go to Yuyun restaurant first. Immediately take people to surround Yuyun restaurant. Don't let the person who killed third elder escape." "Yes." The three elders hurriedly responded. When they saw Patriarch Lu rush out, they quickly gathered people and rushed to Yuyun restaurant. Under everyone's gazes, Fengjiu, who wore dazzling red clothes, came to Senior White's side and patted his head. "Senior White, let's go." This time, everyone could only watch as the red-clothed youth led the reins out of the hall. No one dared to stop him. Even the manager of Dawn Cloud Restaurant could only watch as he left. Because he knew that even if he didn't stop this young man, he wouldn't be able to leave. Everyone watched as he led the fat horse out of the field, went outside, and walked out of Dawn Sky Restaurant's door. Everyone followed behind him and watched. He had killed the third elder of the Lu clan and crippled the young master of the Lu clan. Could this young man really leave this place alive? Just as Fengjiu was about to leave with Senior White, a furious roar came from afar, accompanied by a powerful pressure. "Who dares to kill an elder of the Lu family? Get out here!" A monstrous fury accompanied by a fierce and powerful pressure burst out. In an instant, even the air seemed to have solidified. The low and oppressive aura, as well as the deafening roar, caused the people outside Dawn Cloud Restaurant to retreat one after another, fearing that they would be affected if they were not careful. At the same time when family head Lu arrived, the three elders and nearly 100 guards who followed behind him hurriedly came over. The aggressive team made the peddlers and common people on the street frightened and made way for them. Chapter 248. Almost in an instant, everyone's eyes fell on the red-clothed youth leading the fat horse in front of Yuyun restaurant. At this moment, even though they didn't know him and didn't know who he was, they couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat for him. There were even some people who secretly admired the red-clothed youth's calmness and courage. If it was someone else, they would have been paralyzed with fear upon seeing the Lu family's lineup. "Who killed my Lu family's elder? Get out here!" Family head Lu's malicious and fierce voice rang out again, his sharp and malicious eyes staring at Yuyun restaurant. At this moment, he simply didn't expect that the red-clothed youth leading the fat horse in front of Yuyun restaurant was the person who killed his Lu family's third elder. Therefore, even when he noticed that everyone's eyes were on the red-clothed youth, he didn't think in that direction. After all, The third elder was a Foundation establishment cultivator. How could he be killed by a youth who was still wet behind the ears? At this moment, a middle-aged man wearing a brocade robe walked out of Yuyun Restaurant. He was the owner of Yuyun Restaurant, Chao Mu. Although Yuyun Restaurant was only a restaurant, its power was about the same as the power of a medium-sized family in Six Paths City. It was precisely because of this that no one dared to cause trouble here. After all, the power of a medium-sized family was extremely terrifying. Chao Mu walked out and glanced at the red-clothed youth, then cupped his hands towards Family Head Lu. Family Head Lu, I trust you've been well since we last met. House Head Chao, I don't have time to chat with you today. Tell me, who killed my third elder? How is my son? Family Head Lu asked with a gloomy face. His sharp eyes fell on Chao Mu, not allowing him to dodge even half a bit. Young master, please give Family Head Lu an explanation. Chao Mu looked at Fengjiu and said. Family Head Lu's eyes widened in shock. He angrily pointed at the red-clothed youth leading the fat horse. He killed him. Fengjiu glanced at Chao Mu, then looked at the head of the Lu family in front of him. His clear voice was filled with coldness. So what if I killed him? So what if I killed him? So what if I killed him? Everyone felt as if their heads were about to explode. They only felt that this was inconceivable. Was this young man crazy? He dared to say such words in front of Family Head Lu. Was he really not afraid of death? Not only was clan leader Lu in disbelief, but the three elders were also in disbelief. This young man was not even a foundational cultivator. How could he have killed the third elder, who was at the fourth level of the foundational level? However, the expressions of the surrounding people and Chao Mu's words clearly indicated that it was this red-clothed young man who had killed their Lu clan's third elder. Moreover, this young man himself had said that he was the one who killed him. So what? He had already admitted it, but they still found it hard to believe. How did he do it? How could a youth whose spiritual power was only at the level of a great spirit master kill a foundation establishment cultivator? At this moment, young Master Lu, who was twitching and twisting into a ball, was carried out. When Family Head Lu saw his son in such a state, he was unable to restrain his anger. Like an enraged lion, he was furious. At this moment, the powerful pressure and fierce airflow all over his body swept towards the red-clothed young man. Chapter 249. Bang! The surrounding atmosphere became oppressive due to the surging spiritual power in their bodies. Seeing that the young man in red was able to fight with Family Head Lu without being at a disadvantage, the onlookers were secretly shocked. Family Head Lu was a cultivator in the sixth stage of the foundation establishment realm. Not to mention the fact that the difference in cultivation level was one level, the young man in red was only a great spiritual master. Even at his age, it was rare for him to have such a cultivation level. However, it was simply impossible for the weak to fight against a strong opponent and not lose. Yet, it just so happened that bang! The two people's fists collided. Two streams of air burst out from their fists, forming a visible flow of spiritual power in front of their fists. Because of the collision of the two streams of air, the two people were instantly knocked back several steps. Family Head Lu took a few steps back before stabilizing himself. He was secretly shocked. This young man could actually block his attack. Well, if he didn't have some skills, how could he kill the Lu family's third elder? Fengjiu, who took a few steps back, loosened her fist. She rotated her hand that was hurt from the collision and squinted her clear eyes. After this fight, she had a general understanding of Family Head Lu's strength. Although her spiritual power cultivation was not as good as the opponent's, she had the advantage in her body movements and strange moves. It would not be easy for the opponent to kill her, but it was not impossible for her to kill the opponent. Didn't the foundation establishment realm old man from before die in her hands? What she needed to consider now was how to escape unscathed after killing family head Lu. After all, the power of one person was limited. With her current strength, she could not deal with the whole family taking turns to fight. It seems that I have underestimated you. Family head Lu said in a gloomy voice. He hadn't taken out his weapon before, but now he took it out. He stretched out his hand, and with a flash of light, a long sword with the shape of a curved willow appeared in his hand. Almost at the same time he showed this long sword, there were gasps of surprise around him. Hiss! That's the Lu clan's heirloom, the willow leaf sword. This is a high-grade spiritual weapon. Using it in battle will increase one's strength by a lot. This Lu family head is too much. After all, the opponent is only a youth. Not only is he older than the youth, his cultivation is also stronger than the youth. Now, he even took out the willow leaf sword. This is clearly bullying. What do you know? That young man killed the Lu clan's third elder and slapped the Lu clan's face. If a clan head like him is defeated by that young man, how can the Lu clan establish itself in the Six Paths city in the future? The surrounding people continued to talk, each with their own opinions. They were all watching the show. After seeing this scene, many people secretly shook their heads. This young man is probably going to die here today. Fengjiu's gaze fell on the willow leaf sword in the hall. The spiritual aura on the sword proved that this sword was not ordinary. However, she knew that if this sword was compared to the Qingfeng sword, it was still far from being comparable. However, the Qingfeng sword was not suitable to be used in this kind of situation. Therefore, she took out a dagger. Ha 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 ha. Ignorant child, you want to fight me with a dagger? Chapter 250. As soon as these words came out, everyone gasped and thought to themselves, this young man is so arrogant. When family head Lu heard this, his face darkened as if he was enraged. A cold aura burst out from his body and his hand that was holding the willow leaf sword surged with spirit force. The air on the blade whistled out and the sharp sword energy was like an ice blade, causing some of the people close to him to take a few steps back. I want to see what kind of arrogance a kid like you has got. Before he could finish his sentence, he stopped abruptly. It was as if someone had grabbed him by the throat, and the rest of his words could not come out. His face was so dark and sinister that it was frightening. His eyes were filled with rage as he glared at the damned youth who had attacked him without warning. Because of the young man's sudden attack and fast speed, by the time he reacted, the cold dagger was already close to his throat. At that moment, his heart skipped a beat and he suddenly had a trace of fear and shock that he shouldn't have. The hand that was holding the sword instinctively raised to block, but he could only block the dagger that was going for his throat. It was too late to block the dagger that was going for his arm. Whoosh! The fierce attack was fast and ruthless. The dagger was so deep that the bone could be seen. Blood splashed out in an instant, accompanied by the sound of him gasping and the exclamations of the surrounding Lu family members. Hiss! Family head. When they saw the blood gushing out of their family head's arm, it quickly dyed his entire sleeve red. His arm was also hanging down due to the injury and was trembling slightly. Blood dripped down from his hand to the ground and bloomed into beautiful red plum blossoms on the ground. That I already said that a dagger is enough to deal with you. Fengjiu, who had already retreated, narrowed his eyes and slightly curved his lips. He seemed to be in a good mood as he looked at family head Lu, whose hand was dripping with blood. Just as everyone was shocked by his unconventional actions and ruthlessness, they heard him say something that made people's mouths twitch and the Lu family's teeth clench in anger with a tone of admiration. The blooming blood on the ground is really beautiful. Enchanting and bloodthirsty. Family head Lu, don't you agree? She smiled and looked at the gloomy family head Lu. He was glaring at her as if she had done something unforgivable. She couldn't help but curl her lips into a smile. Kill him. Family head Lu gritted his teeth and ordered gloomily. The three elders at the side responded. Just as they were about to make a move, they heard a deep and dignified voice. Wait! Suddenly, someone called out to stop them. Everyone was startled and looked in the direction of the voice in surprise. When they saw it, everyone respectfully called out. City Lord. The surrounding people quickly opened up a path, surprised that the City Lord was actually here. There were even more gazes that landed on the red-robed man beside the City Lord. Many of the people present were the disciples of the city's aristocratic families and some well-informed cultivators. Previously, they had heard that the ghost doctor had come to the Sixdao city and was personally received by the City Lord. Now that they saw this red-clothed man wearing a mask, they all guessed, could this person be the ghost doctor? Chapter 251. As for the red-clothed man, his gaze fell on Fengjiu, who was similarly dressed in red. Fengjiu, who was originally looking at Lu family head, felt a burning gaze on her and instinctively looked over. When her gaze landed on the red-clothed man wearing a devil's snare mask, her eyebrows raised slightly. When she saw the man looking at her with a covetous and vulgar gaze, her gaze turned cold. When she first arrived at Six Paths City, she heard that there was a ghost doctor here, but she didn't expect to meet him today. From the looks of it, he seemed to be a lecher. Moreover, he was gay. Her gaze turned and fell on the City Lord, sizing him up without batting an eyelid. The City Lord of Six Paths City was said to have advanced not long ago. He broke through the threshold that he hadn't broken through for a long time and became a foundation establishment cultivator. He was only one step away from becoming a golden core cultivator. When Lu family head, who was originally furious and gloomy, saw the City Lord and the red-clothed man wearing a mask, his eyes lit up with joy and he asked. City Lord, could this be the ghost doctor who has recently become famous? That's right, it's the ghost doctor. City Lord Chang nodded and glanced at the person beside him. As soon as his words came out, the surrounding people immediately became excited. Ghost doctor. It's really the ghost doctor. It's said that the ghost doctor's whereabouts are elusive. I didn't expect him to come to our Six Paths City. That's right. I heard that the ghost doctor's medicine is close to a divine medicine. It's effective immediately. If I can ask him for a bottle of medicine to advance, I won't hesitate to spend a sky-high price. That's right, I heard that the City Lord broke through the foundation establishment after taking the ghost doctor's medicine. He's only one step away from golden core cultivation. If possible, I also want to ask the ghost doctor for medicine. I can spend as much money as I want. Just think about it. Even my family couldn't bid for it. Do you think you can get a bottle? That's impossible. Do you know how many connections the City Lord used to get that bottle of medicine? The ghost doctor's medicine can't be bought even if you have money. The moment they saw the ghost doctor appear, the surrounding aristocratic children all started to quarrel. Some of them quickly sent people back to their families to report, telling their family patriarchs that the ghost doctor was in front of Dawn Cloud Restaurant. The red-clothed man couldn't help but reveal a smile when he saw the crowd's respectful and excited gazes landing on him. He raised his chin slightly and his gaze was filled with a sense of superiority. He enjoyed the admiration of the crowd at this moment. Seeing this, Fengjiu glanced at the red-clothed man and sneered disapprovingly. A fake ghost doctor still had the nerve to be so smug and self-satisfied? It was simply ridiculous. However, her disapproving sneer aroused the dissatisfaction of the surrounding people, especially the Lu family head who was eager to show goodwill to the ghost doctor. He glared at Fengjiu and shouted harshly. In front of the City Lord and the ghost doctor, an arrogant brat like you actually dares to be impudent? Someone come. Kill him on the spot. Clan leader Lu, please wait, said the City Lord, stopping them. City Lord, what is the meaning of this? Clan leader Lu's face darkened. He thought that the City Lord wanted to protect the red-clothed youth, so even his tone became gloomy. At this moment, the red-clothed man wearing the mask walked forward and stopped in front of Fengjiu. Staring at that handsome face, he couldn't hide the desire and excitement in his eyes. Chapter 252. So what if you follow me? I can guarantee your life and allow you to use medicine as you wish. Hearing this, even family head Lu and the others couldn't help but look at the masked man in red with astonishment. Their faces were full of shock and uncertainty. What did this mean? Let the red-clothed youth follow him. Do what with him? These words, were they thinking too much? However, when everyone saw the masked ghost doctor's eyes staring at the red-clothed youth with unconcealable desire, black lines appeared on their foreheads. It seemed that they weren't thinking too much, but that the ghost doctor had that intention from the beginning. However, to covet the red-clothed youth in public, this ghost doctor's actions were too shocking. Hearing this, Fengjiu chuckled. Her voice was clear and pleasant to the ear, but if one listened carefully, they could hear the coldness and killing intent in her voice. She played with the dagger in her hand and raised her eyebrows. She glanced at the red-clothed man and asked in a tone that was 3 parts ridicule and 7 parts laziness. Who are you? I'm the ghost doctor, and also a pharmacist. As long as you follow me, the benefits are beyond your imagination. His drooling eyes were fixed on Fengjiu's body. His gaze moved down little by little, lingering on Fengjiu's body. That gaze was extremely invasive, and it was extremely displeasing to the eye. The corners of Fengjiu's lips curled up as she looked at the ghost doctor whose eyes were filled with desire. A faint light flashed through her clear eyes as a charming smile appeared on her peerlessly handsome face. Her expression was slightly bashful as she said, "Don't look at me with that kind of gaze. I'll easily become impulsive." When these words came out, the surrounding people were stunned. They looked at the red-clothed youth in astonishment. He actually used that kind of expression, that kind of tone, and that kind of words to respond to the ghost doctor's words. Could it be that the red-clothed youth also had that kind of intention? At the same time, in a house in Six Paths City, Ing Yi rushed in and shouted, "Master! Master!" Something happened. Grey Wolf stopped him and hurriedly asked, "What's wrong? Didn't you go out to find out about the ghost doctor's whereabouts? Why are you back so quickly?" "Yes. That's why I said something happened." Ing Yi pushed him away and asked, "Is Master still in the room?" "Yes, he hasn't come out yet." Grey Wolf could not help but ask, "What's going on?" Ing Yi did not respond to him, but shouted towards the closed door, "Master, something has happened to the ghost doctor. Someone wants to kill him." Almost as soon as he finished speaking, the door opened and Lord Yen, who was dressed in black robes and exuding an imposing aura, appeared before the two of them. His face was dark, and his eyes were cold and terrifying. His eyes fell on Ing Yi, and he asked in a calm voice, "What's going on?" "This subordinate was worried about Master, so I went out to investigate. When I was coming back, I heard that the ghost doctor accompanied by the city lord of Six Paths City appeared at Yuyun Restaurant. It seems that something has happened at Yuyun Restaurant." He looked at the Yama lord and said, "A red-clothed youth killed the 3rd elder of the Lu family in the city." The Lu family led a large group of people to surround Yuyun Restaurant, saying that they want to kill the red-clothed youth. According to the description of the people, this subordinate guesses that the red-clothed youth is the ghost doctor. What? They want to kill the ghost doctor? Chapter 253. Seeing this, the two immediately returned to their senses and quickly followed. Kill the ghost doctor. This Lu family's guts were too big. Weren't they afraid that their master would exterminate his family? Because their master's speed was extremely fast, his figure disappeared in the blink of an eye. Therefore, Hui Lang opened his mouth to ask, "Ing Yi, why did that ghost doctor run to Clear Sky Restaurant by himself? Did you find out what happened between him and Master?" I don't know why he went to Yuyun restaurant, but I do know that the ghost doctor, that brat, has a lot of guts. He actually snuck away after making a fortune out of Master. I reckon that Master's identity was discovered by him. What? Made a fortune out of Master? Hui Lang exclaimed in astonishment. No wonder Master's face was so ugly when he came back. So he was tricked by the ghost doctor. Ying Yi exclaimed, that's right. Even if I don't want to admit defeat to this kid, only he can make Master suffer so many losses and still be alive and kicking. I really don't know where this weirdo popped out from. His vitality is too strong. Just as Yama Lord and Ying Yi, Hui Lang were rushing to Clear Sky Restaurant, the atmosphere in front of Clear Sky Restaurant's entrance was frozen. Each and every one of them had ugly expressions because of the red-clothed youth's bashful expression and those words that made one's imagination run wild. Of course, there was one exception. The masked ghost doctor was excited because of Feng Zhou's words. Looking at the enchanting smile on the youth's lips, as well as the shyness on that handsome face, he couldn't help but walk in front of the youth. His gaze carried an undisguised evil excitement as he looked at him. The youth's enchanting expression made his heart beat wildly, and a warm current surged in his heart. He couldn't help but reach out his hand to embrace the youth's waist, since you're willing. Ah! Before he could finish speaking, a mournful scream rang out. That sound was sharp and ear-piercing, cutting through the silence in the air. Breaking the silence, it clearly entered the ears of the surrounding people, and suddenly woke up everyone from their stupor. Ah! 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 Cries of shock and astonishment could be heard all around. It was a little chaotic. Some people even covered their mouths and trembled all over. Everyone shuddered when they saw the bloody and ruthless scene. They couldn't help but take a few steps back as they stared in horror at the devilish and enchanting young man. I told you not to look at me like that. I'll get impulsive easily, but you didn't believe me. The handsome young man standing against the wind had a demonic and cold expression on his face. A bloodthirsty murderous aura emanated from his body, but the words that came out of his mouth sounded helpless and innocent. However, what frightened everyone was not the murderous aura on his body, but the blood dripping from his finger. Everyone's gaze had been fixed on the red-clothed youth and the ghost doctor, so they saw the red-clothed youth knock off the ghost doctor's mask, gouge out the ghost doctor's eyes, and throw them on the ground. He actually dug out the ghost doctor's eyeballs. That ruthless method, that strange skill that no one could stop in time, made them tremble in fear as they watched the bloody and cruel scene unfold before their eyes. Ah! My eyes! My eyes! I'll kill you! I'll kill you! Chapter 254. Only to see that the two bloody holes on his bloody face were extremely horrifying. Without the concealment of a mask, the crazed expression on his face fell into everyone's eyes. Coupled with the two bloody holes, everyone's heart couldn't help but tremble. Luckily it was still daytime. If it was nighttime, it would definitely scare people to death. He pounced around crazily, not knowing where he pulled out a dagger and waved it around. The sharp sound was ear-piercing to everyone's ears. No one around moved, and no one stepped forward. Because they were all shocked by the bloody scene, and by the young man's methods. That was the ghost doctor. The ghost doctor who had recently become famous. He actually dared to dig out the ghost doctor's eyes just like that. This kind of situation was totally unexpected. And the ghost doctor who had lost a pair of eyes, no matter how powerful the medicine she concocted was, if she became blind, then everything would be in vain. I'll kill you. Kill you. Kill you. He pounced around and waved his dagger, but was kicked to the ground by Feng Zhou. Bam! Ah! Crashing to the ground, he cried out in pain and screamed, but no one went forward to help him. Because everyone knew that even if he was the ghost doctor, at this moment, he already had no value. Just as he was shouting crazily and trying to get up, a foot stepped on his back, pressing him back to the ground. Aren't you the ghost doctor? What? Just this bit of ability? A gentle voice with a hint of coldness came out from her mouth. Just using one foot, she made the person on the ground unable to get up. Ah! Ah ah ah! He struggled and screamed, but the darkness in front of him and the helplessness caused him to sink into madness. He actually urged the spiritual energy in his body, intending to explode with Fengjiu. However, when the spiritual energy in his body surged, Fengjiu, who sensed that something was wrong, had already used her profound energy aura to lift the person on the ground up and threw him into the air. Just as he was thrown into the air, a rumbling sound was heard. Following the sound of an explosion, a piece of mangled flesh and blood fell down, and in the dark, Hui Lang and Ying Yi, who had already been here for a while, couldn't help but swallow their saliva, their faces filled with shock and horror. Oh my God! Who would have thought that the ghost doctor would be so ferocious? She was not the least bit careless when she made her move. When he saw the fake ghost doctor's eyes being dug out and his body exploding, Hui Lang patted his thumping heart and thought to himself, the ghost doctor had already been merciful to him. If he really went all out, this fake ghost doctor would probably end up like him. At this moment, he was incomparably glad that he did not provoke him after that. Otherwise, he was afraid that at that time, it would not be just a matter of a few days, but a matter of minutes could have been cut off. Ying Yi, on the other hand, looked worriedly at his master, who was hiding and watching like them. She thought to herself, this ghost doctor's skills are so good, and his methods are so vicious. If Mistress is together with him, I'm afraid it won't be safe. What's more, the ghost doctor was so ferocious, how could Master possibly suppress her? Looking at this situation, it was possible that Master would be the one below at any time. After thinking for a while, Ying Yi looked at the Yama Lord and asked in a low voice, Master, are we really not going out? Is it really okay to just hide here and watch? Let's take a look first. Chapter 255. In the past, he only knew that she was crafty, eccentric, and as cunning as a fox. Only now did he know that she had such a cold and ruthless side to her. But why was it that the more he looked at her, the more he liked her? There was a touch of gentleness in his deep black eyes, and his sexy thin lips curled into an imperceptible smile. His gaze was fixed on the red figure, and he watched as she wantonly displayed her skills to crush and shock the enemy. She was unparalleled in her magnificence. She appeared so confident and radiant that it was difficult for him to shift his gaze away. Ying Yi's sharp eyes noticed that his master was looking at the ghost doctor with a gaze so gentle that it gave him goosebumps, and he couldn't help but shiver. His master's taste was indeed different from the rest. To be able to reveal such a gaze in front of such a scene, it really made him admire him. In front of Yu Yun restaurant, everyone recovered from the shock of seeing the scattered flesh and blood. They angrily glared at the reckless and arrogant red-clothed youth. Among them, the Lu family's patriarch angrily shouted. This child's methods are vicious and his heart is ruthless. He cannot be allowed to live. Kill him on the spot. A gloomy voice that contained a powerful pressure and killing intent spread out. Almost at that moment, the three elders of the Lu family surrounded the red-clothed youth. The three of them formed a triangle, and powerful spiritual auras surged from their bodies. In the next moment, they let out a low roar and attacked the red-clothed youth in the middle. The three of them attacked aggressively. Murderous aura emanated from their bodies and filled the air. The whistling airflow was like sharp wind blades that flew in the air and attacked the red-clothed youth. Fengjiu's eyes narrowed, and he mobilized the spiritual aura in his body to meet the attacks of the three people. The dagger in his hand drew a sharp blade aura in the air, and he used a strange movement technique and tricky attacks to pass by the three elders. Seeing the three foundation establishment elders of the Lu clan attacking the young man in red, everyone around them swallowed their saliva and their hearts were in their throats. Every move of the three foundation establishment elders was ruthless and filled with killing intent. Could it be that this red-clothed youth could still dodge them? Seeing the three elders of the Lu clan deal with the ghost doctor alone, Ing-yi worriedly lowered his voice and said, "Master, the people of the Lu clan are too shameless. They're bullying the ghost doctor by relying on their numbers. Moreover, they're three Foundation establishment old men. Should we go out and help? If this continues, the ghost doctor will be injured by them. After all, he was the most important person in their master's heart. They couldn't just stand by and watch him get injured." The Yama Lord narrowed his eyes and looked at the scene in front of him. He did not speak, nor did he give any indication. However, Hui Lang lowered his voice and said, "Ing-yi, you don't have to worry about that. Those three Foundation establishment old men are no match for the ghost doctor. Just watch. It won't be long before the three of them collapse." After a pause, he continued, "Besides, even if there's danger, Master won't let the ghost doctor get hurt here. So let's just watch. Aren't you curious how strong the ghost doctor is?" Letting him slip away again and again under their noses was really a loss of face. He wanted to use this opportunity to see where the ghost doctor's limits were. That way, he wouldn't suffer at his hands in the future. Chapter 256. Hearing this, Ing-yi glanced at his master. Seeing that his master didn't say anything, it was clear that he agreed with Hui Lang's words. Thus, he didn't speak again, but paid attention to the battle in front. Originally, they were worried that the ghost doctor would be defeated by the three Foundation establishment old men. However, as they watched, they realized that the three old men had been injured by the ghost doctor's dagger. The more they fought, the more difficult it was for them to fight. On the other hand, there wasn't a single wound on the ghost doctor's body. Not only did they see this, but even the people watching the battle in front of Yu Yun restaurant saw the trick. Hiss. Could it be that this red-clothed youth's strength isn't just at the level of a great soul master? Impossible. He clearly only has the strength of a great soul master. His spiritual energy aura isn't strong, but his movement technique is too strange. Also, his martial skill is very strange. I've never seen such a strange martial skill. I reckon that it might be a high-grade martial skill. High-grade martial skill? How is that possible? It's said that in our Six Paths city, only the city lord obtained a high-grade martial skill. How could a youth like him have such a precious thing? I already said that this youth's background wasn't ordinary, but you didn't believe me. Take a look. If the Lu family doesn't stop now, I reckon they'll all die here. Looks like the Lu family kicked an iron plate this time. They couldn't take down this youth, and instead lost a few of their family's pillars. If even these three elders die, then the Lu family will probably fall from a mid-tier family to a small family. Ah! Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream rang out, causing everyone's hearts to tighten. They looked towards the source of the scream and saw an old man suddenly fall to the ground after being kicked. His entire body was convulsing and trembling non-stop, and he was also letting out unbearable cries of pain. Hiss. It hurts. Ah. Seeing this scene, the Lu family head was bewildered. He had people help the elder back. "Second elder, where are you hurt?" He looked up and down. Other than some flesh wounds on his body, he didn't see any other injuries. However, the second elder's face was deathly pale, and he was in so much pain that he broke out in a cold sweat. He couldn't help but be shocked. Body hurts, my whole body hurts, hiss. Ah. The second elder couldn't bear it and could only roll on the ground. Hiss. At this moment, the fourth elder's back was slashed by a dagger. The wound was so deep that his bones could be seen. Blood gushed out and dyed his gray robe red. Seeing the fourth elder stumbling back, family head Lu's face finally changed. Not only was the fourth elder's back injured, but even the first elder was covered in wounds. He couldn't help but come to the city lord. "City lord, this brat's methods are vicious. Not only did he kill members of my Lu family, he also killed the ghost doctor. Could it be that the city lord is planning to just stand by and do nothing? Hearing this, the city lord, who originally didn't intend to interfere, frowned. After glancing at family head Lu, he looked at the red-clothed young man with extraordinary combat strength and said, "You are already 3 against 1. Since you still can't take him down, let him go." The ghost doctor was already dead, and this young man definitely had an extraordinary background. Why would he want to offend a young man with such astonishing battle prowess for someone who was already dead? What's more, such a person couldn't have no backing. If he really died in the Six Paths City, it would be a big problem. Seeing that the city lord didn't intend to interfere, family head Lu clenched his teeth. He was unwilling to give up. Seeing that the red-clothed young man had his back to him and was fighting with the first elder, a cold light flashed in his eyes. The next moment, he held the willow leaf sword in his hand and stabbed at the young man's back. Chapter 257. Seeing this, many people in the surroundings widened their eyes in shock. They did not expect that the master of the Lu clan would launch a sneak attack. To the people present, they were all people of status. They would not stoop so low as to launch a sneak attack. Even if they won, it would only be shameful. If they wanted to win, they would rather defeat the opponent fair and square and take the opponent's life. Therefore, when they saw the Lu family head use such a despicable method in front of everyone, they all shook their heads and sighed. They were very disappointed in him. Some people didn't think there was anything wrong with what he did. In a situation where he couldn't win, as long as he could kill the opponent, any method was good. They didn't think there was anything wrong with what he did. When the Yama Lord saw this, his deep eyes darkened. He stared at the Lu family head with murderous eyes. He pursed his thin lips and didn't say anything. However, the murderous look on his body and the darkened expression on his face told Ing Yi and Hui Lang that even if the Lu family head didn't die here, he would probably die in a few days. They didn't help because they saw the ghost doctor's quick reaction. She didn't even look back when she sensed the murderous intent behind her and launched a counterattack. Clang! The sound of sword and saber colliding made a crisp sound. Sparks burst out from the friction between the sword and saber. The sharp saber aura and sword aura fought against each other, making whistling sounds. The two of them fought in the light of the saber and the sword. They were so fast that the onlookers could only see the air blades around them, cutting the ground and leaving sword marks. At the moment when the two of them fought, the great elder, who had been pushed back, turned his hands. The wind blades surging with spiritual power formed two invisible blades and fiercely slashed at Fengjiu's back. After witnessing the shamelessness of family head Lu and seeing that the first elder was imitating him, no one dared to say anything more. However, at this moment, Fengjiu kicked the wrist of the Lu family's sword master. The sound of bones breaking could be heard clearly. The willow leaf sword also flew out of her hand because of this kick. It turned in the air and then fell to the ground with a clang. Hiss! Family head Lu gasped and staggered backward. Both of his hands were injured. This time, it was impossible for him to fight again. At this moment, Fengjiu, who had broken family head Lu's wrist bone, leaped into the air. His elegant figure carried an intimidating aura, and his dazzling red robe fluttered in the wind. His handsome and enchanting face carried a bloodthirsty and charming smile. At that moment, he emitted a dazzling aura that made people's eyes light up and their hearts tremble. What a peerlessly beautiful young man! Just as everyone couldn't help but praise in their hearts, the situation changed in the next moment. The red figure that made everyone's eyes light up instantly shot out the dagger in her hand in midair. With a whoosh, the dagger pierced through the air and pierced into the great elder's throat. Hiss! Seeing the Lu family's head elder's body stiffen and his eyes wide open, he couldn't even let out a scream. Everyone couldn't help but take a deep breath. A storm suddenly rose in their hearts and they couldn't calm down for a long time. Great Elder. Chapter 258. Ha 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 ha. His laughter contained a powerful pressure, causing everyone's eardrums to hurt slightly. They only heard the laughter suddenly stop, and his malicious gaze was like a poisonous snake staring at the red-robed youth. His voice was filled with a strong murderous aura as it came out of his mouth. To be able to force my Lu family to this point, you are indeed capable. However, today, I will definitely kill you on the spot. Only then can I vent the hatred in my heart. As soon as he finished speaking, he crushed a white jade seal on his waist and shouted, "Cloud-swallowing beast." Almost as soon as he crushed the white jade talisman on his waist, a beam of light shot up into the sky. At the same time, in front of the Lu clan's mansion, a huge stone beast with a strange appearance suddenly let out a cracking sound, shocking the entire Lu clan. Not good. Something happened. The stone beast statue outside of our residence has cracked open. As soon as the voice spread through the Lu family, the sound of the stone beast cracking shook the entire Lu family. When the Lu family patriarch heard this, he was so shocked that his face turned pale. What is going on? What happened in the mansion? Where is the family head? Where is the family head? Tell him to come see me. As he shouted, he hurried to the gate with his walking stick. A guard came forward to report. Patriarch, the family head took 3 elders to Yuyun restaurant. They are fighting with someone there. This unfilial son. Who did he offend? Even the sacred beast of my Lu family was alarmed. He wants to destroy my Lu family's century-old foundation. The Lu family patriarch was so angry that he slammed his walking stick on the ground and shouted, "Quick! Quick! Go ask the uncles to go to Yuyun restaurant together." As he spoke, he hurried outside. Outside, the Lu family patriarch saw that one of the 2 giant stone beast statues at the gate moved with a rumble. The stone beast statue that was originally sitting down stood up. Its body shook, and the stones on its body scattered to the ground, revealing the stone beast's original appearance. Roar! A furious roar tore through the sky. The powerful pressure and aura of a sacred beast spread through the sky along with the roar, causing the entire 6 Paths city to tremble. It shocked the various clans and commoners in the city. When the Lu family patriarch saw the sacred beast that revealed its original appearance, his legs went soft and he collapsed. It's over, it's over. Patriarch. The accompanying guards' legs were also trembling as they hurriedly supported him. At this moment, they were also extremely shocked. They never knew that the stone beast statue at the gate actually hid a majestic and awe-inspiring huge sacred beast. The first time they saw a sacred beast, they were shocked by the pressure released by the sacred beast. Their faces turned pale, and their bodies trembled. The sacred beast shook its fur and stretched its muscles. It snorted heavily and turned around to glance at the Lu family's old master. Then, it bent its body and leaped toward the light that shot into the sky. At this moment, everyone in front of Dawn Cloud Restaurant was extremely astounded as well. Cloud-swallowing beast. Isn't that the sacred beast of the Lu family? It is the sacred beast of the Lu clan. It is said that the Lu clan became a mid-tier clan because of this beast. However, it has been many years since the beast has appeared. Chapter 259. Fengjiu looked at the light that soared into the sky and the confidence in family head Lu's words. He was a little surprised. If it was his contract beast, why didn't it appear directly? Instead, it was waiting for it to appear. Could it be that the cloud-swallowing beast he called wasn't his contract beast? If it wasn't his contract beast, why would it listen to his call? In the dark, Hui Lang said to the Yama Lord, "Master, the cloud-swallowing beast of the Lu family is a sacred beast. It is a contract beast left behind by the ancestors of the Lu family. If the ghost doctor goes up against Master, I'm afraid the situation bodes ill. Hearing this, the Yama Lord's deep eyes moved slightly. He glanced at the red figure and whispered, "You two stay here and watch." As soon as his voice fell, he instantly left. His speed was as fast as lightning. When Hui Lang and Ing Yi turned around, he had already disappeared. "What do you think Master is going to do?" Hui Lang asked in a daze. Ing Yi thought for a moment and said, "I think he's going to kill the cloud-swallowing beast halfway." Hearing this, the corner of Grey Wolf's mouth twitched. Speechless, he turned his head around and looked at the red figure in front of Dawn Cloud Restaurant. He sighed softly, Master is really willing to do anything for the ghost doctor. With their master's strength, not to mention killing a sacred beast, even killing a sacred beast would be a matter of moving his hands. However, what they didn't expect was that Master would personally kill a sacred beast. Instead, the two of them had nothing to do. Alas! Who told Master to value the ghost doctor so much? Perhaps he was afraid that they would fail, so he personally took action. It could only be said that the cloud-swallowing beast was unlucky to meet Master. Who told it to be the sacred beast of the Lu family? It was fine if it was the sacred beast of the Lu family, but this reckless family head Lu actually dared to use a sacred beast to kill the ghost doctor. This was simply a violation of Master's taboo. As time passed, everyone suddenly felt that something was wrong. Even Fengjiu, who originally wanted to see what the cloud-swallowing beast looked like, couldn't help but raise his eyebrows at this time. The next moment, the red figure flashed and grabbed family head Lu's throat as he anxiously looked around. Yes. Family head Lu was shocked. His throat tightened. When he realized that his life and death was in the hands of the young man in red, his face turned pale. Roar! Suddenly, a furious roar reverberated in the sky. After the roar reached everyone's ears, it quickly disappeared, as if it was just an illusion and did not appear again. "Where's your cloud-swallowing beast? I've been waiting for a while." She glanced at the direction where the voice came from and asked in a cold voice. She narrowed her clear eyes and looked at family head Lu with a murderous look. As long as the city lord and the others didn't make a move, she was more than enough to deal with the Lu family. As for the cloud-devouring saint beast, she was someone who possessed an ancient divine beast, so why would she be afraid of a mere saint beast? Unfilial son. You unfilial son. Are you trying to harm the entire Lu family? Are you trying to destroy the entire Lu family? An angry voice came from not far away. Everyone looked in the direction of the voice and saw the Lu family's patriarch and a few elders rushing over. The Lu family's patriarch, who was in the lead, looked furious. If it weren't for the two guards supporting him, he probably wouldn't have been able to make it here. Father. Chapter 260. He stared blankly at their furious faces. He didn't know why the cloud-swallowing beast didn't come. Instead, it was his father and several clan elders who came. What on earth happened to the cloud-swallowing beast? The people around saw that the cloud-swallowing beast summoned by clan head Lu didn't come. Instead, it was old Great Master Lu and several clan elders who came. They couldn't help but be startled and pondered. The previous beast roar was undoubtedly from a holy beast. But after so long, the cloud-swallowing beast didn't appear. What was going on? Young Master, this old man apologizes to young Master. I hope that young Master can be magnanimous and spare my son's life. Old Great Master Lu waved away the two guards who were supporting him and knelt down before Fengjiu with a plop. As soon as he made this move, some of the young nobles around him were shocked. The family leaders and the older ones sank into deep thought because they knew that he was trying to protect the Lu family. At this moment, only clan head Lu hadn't come to his senses. He didn't know that he had kicked an iron plate. Not only was this red-clothed young man powerful, but the force behind him was even more terrifying. The Lu family had made him their enemy. If the Lu family underestimated him, the Lu family's patriarch and a few elders would lose their lives. In the worst-case scenario, the entire Lu family would be buried with the Lu family's patriarch. "Sir, please be merciful." The clan elders also knelt down without another word. They didn't defend themselves. They didn't argue who was right and who was wrong. They didn't want to use their power to oppress others. They didn't want to seek justice for the dead. They only wanted to save the Lu clan and their clan. Along the way, someone had already told them everything that had happened. With their experience, they naturally knew that the Lu clan was in big trouble today. If they didn't deal with it properly, the entire Lu clan would have to be buried with their clan leader for what he had done today. At this moment, they threw away their pride as elders, threw away their dignity as elders, and lowered their posture. Not for those who had died, but for those who were still alive. The surroundings quieted down. Everyone's eyes fell on Fungio. How would the red-robed young man deal with this? Faced with such a scene, what would he do? In the dark, the Yama Lord, who had quietly returned, also saw this scene. His deep eyes fell on Fungio. As long as she didn't want the Lu clan to exist, he would make sure that the Lu clan disappeared before tomorrow. Fungio narrowed his eyes and looked at them, deep in thought. She was a person who clearly distinguished between kindness and hatred. If others treated her with respect, she would not use her power to oppress them. However, she would not be merciful to those who wanted to kill her. The elders kneeling in front of her all had sincere expressions as they looked at her with pleading eyes. She couldn't make up her mind for a moment. The one who wanted to kill her was their family head. As long as their family did not use their power to kill her, there was no need for her to exterminate their family. Seeing this scene, family head Lu finally realized what he had done. For a moment, he stared blankly at his father and elders kneeling on the ground. Chapter 261. Just kill me. Please be magnanimous and let my Lu family off the hook. Family head Lu murmured. His whole body relaxed, and he no longer thought of resisting. The murderous intent and unwillingness in his eyes finally dissipated. At this moment, it was no longer up to him to decide. He didn't have the ability to kill the red-clothed youth, so the one who died was him. If he didn't die and bring disaster to his family, then even if he died, he wouldn't have the face to see his ancestors. President Ku of the black market has arrived. Suddenly, a voice containing spiritual energy broke the silence and heavy atmosphere in front of Yu Yun restaurant. Almost as soon as they heard the news of President Ku of the black market's arrival, everyone's eyes instinctively looked towards the red-clothed youth. President Ku of the black market. The black market's influence spread across all the major countries. That was the backer of the ghost doctor. Now that they had found their way here, they must have rushed over because they knew that the ghost doctor was here. But now, the ghost doctor was already dead, and had died so tragically. If the people from the black market knew, what would happen? The city lord and the others thought of this. The Lu family head, whose eyes had already dimmed, also thought of this. A glimmer of hope appeared on his originally despairing face. He was thinking that if the people of the black market could avenge the ghost doctor and kill this red-robed young man, then his Lu family would be saved. Everyone's expression was uncertain. Only Fungio was as calm as before. She looked at family head Lu, whose throat was being choked by her, who turned his face towards the direction of the voice. Her lips curled up slightly. What are you thinking? Do you think they can save you? Or can they kill me? Family head Lu's pursed lips trembled slightly. He looked at his father and the elders who were still kneeling on the ground, sighed softly, and closed his eyes. Kill me. Use my life to end all of this. Indeed, I can let the Lu family go, but I will never let go of someone who wants to kill me. As soon as Fungio's soft voice fell, a murderous intent flashed through her eyes. She tightened her grip on family head Lu's throat. With a crack, she broke family head Lu's throat, who didn't resist at all. Until he died, he only let out a muffled groan and died. Bang! She loosened her grip, and family head Lu fell to the ground, right in front of the Lu family's people. Looking at family head Lu, who was already dead, elder Lu's eyes were dazed. There was unconcealable pain and helplessness. As for the elders, their mouths moved, but they didn't say a word. They just looked at the corpse in front of them and sighed. Who should he blame? Who did he hate? Who should he look for? They could only blame themselves for all of this. They hated themselves because they had brought this upon themselves. This was a world where the strong were respected, the city lord and the others also sighed in their hearts. Who would have thought, who would have thought? Clan leader Lu had died just like that. They had thought of the beginning, but not the ending. They had thought that the young man in red would be the one to die in the end. However, at this moment, no one dared to underestimate him. No one dared to be presumptuous in front of him. At this moment, orderly and steady footsteps came from afar. The sound of the footsteps made everyone raise their heads to look. They saw a group of about 50 black-clothed guards walking down the street. The 50 black-clothed guards all had a biting cold aura, and their auras were steady. It seemed that they were all carefully selected experts. Chapter 262. City Lord Ku, who was in the lead, walked over with large and steady steps, laughing heartily. When he saw the scene in front of Yuyun restaurant, he was somewhat astonished. What's going on here? Did something happen? Chairman Ku's gaze swept over the corpse on the ground, then looked at the few old men kneeling on the ground. However, the surroundings were silent. No one replied to him, because they didn't know what to say. Should they directly tell him that the ghost doctor was dead, that her eyes were dug out, and that her body exploded? And that the culprit who dug out the ghost doctor's eyes and caused her death was still standing here? Although this was the truth, and many people had seen it, but at this moment, no one dared to say it. Because of this, the atmosphere was frozen and somewhat strange. This is... Chairman Ku's gaze fell on the dazzling young man in red. Seeing this young man, he couldn't help but think of the ghost doctor, because they were very similar. Only, this young man in red was extremely outstanding, but he had never seen the ghost doctor's face before. He didn't know if this person in front of him was the one he was looking for. This was the young man who killed the ghost doctor. Many people wanted to shout this out, but they didn't have the guts. Until this strange atmosphere was broken by a pleasantly surprised voice. Master. Ling Shuang, dressed in black, ran over from the back of the group. Although she was dressed in black, at this moment, her figure wasn't restrained or concealed, revealing the exquisite figure of a woman. Hearing Ling Shuang's shout, Chairman Ku was startled and looked around. Where is she? Where is the ghost doctor? As soon as his voice fell, a gust of wind swept past him. Ling Shuang had already flown over to the young man in red. Master, how are you? Are you alright? Ling Shuang held her arm and looked her up and down. When she saw the small holes in her clothes, her cold and elegant face immediately froze. Who was it? Who did this to Master? Ha ha ha. So Ghost Doctor younger brother is actually so handsome ah. This is the first time I've seen your face. It's really breathtaking. When Chairman Ku saw Ling Shuang come forward to recognize him, he laughed and walked forward, asking, Ghost Doctor, how have you been these days? When we heard that you were in Six Paths City, we immediately rushed over. We were afraid that we would miss you. Everyone was stunned by this scene. What the hell was going on? Ghost Doctor. Wasn't the Ghost Doctor destroyed by this red-clothed youth? Why did City Lord Ku recognize the wrong person? And where did that black-clothed woman come from? Why did City Lord Ku greet the red-clothed youth with a smile after she called him her master? And he kept calling out, Ghost Doctor. At this moment, the city lord's expression changed drastically. Cold sweat broke out on his forehead, and even his lips trembled slightly. This couldn't be what he was thinking, right? This red-clothed youth, could it be that he was the real ghost doctor? Heavens! What a stupid thing he had done. When the crowd saw this scene, they all widened their eyes in disbelief. Ghost doctor. This is the real ghost doctor. Then what the hell was the one who died before? Chairman Ku, I trust you have been well since we last met. Chapter 263. Hearing Feng Zhou's words, Chairman Ku's smile deepened. However, when she saw the expressions of the people around her and the people who were paralyzed on the ground, she couldn't help but be surprised. She asked, "What's wrong with them?" Feng Zhou glanced at those people with a mischievous smile on her face. Maybe, they were scared. At this moment, the city lord, who had regained his senses, hurried forward to bow and apologize. "Ghost doctor, I was blind and mistook you for the ghost doctor. It's really, sigh. Mistook you for the ghost doctor. What's going on?" Chairman Ku looked at Feng Zhou and City Lord Chang in surprise. Could it be that something big happened here before this? It's over. There's no need to mention it again. As she spoke, she looked at the trembling elders kneeling on the ground. Her gaze darkened as she walked up to them. This ends here. You can go back. Hearing this, the people kneeling on the ground were so moved that they almost cried. When they heard that the red-clothed youth was the ghost doctor, they thought that it was over. Their Lu family was done for. They didn't expect that she would let them go and not pursue the matter. Thank you, ghost doctor. Thank you. They kowtowed gratefully and thanked her from the bottom of their hearts. Because of her magnanimity, the Lu family was saved from a catastrophe. Immediately, they quickly left with their people. They didn't dare to stay here any longer, as if they were afraid that she would change her mind. Ghost doctor, please come to the city lord's residence to rest. Give me a chance to apologize. The city lord spoke again, trying to make up for what he had done wrong. Chairman Ku's scrutinizing gaze fell on City Lord Chang. A glint flashed across her eyes. Apologize? No need, Feng Zhou said lightly, then said to Ling Shuang, take Old White. Ling Shuang followed her gaze and saw the fat horse sleeping on the ground. Although he was curious why his master got such a horse, he still went forward to take the reins. Lao Bai also woke up because he had pulled the reins. When he saw Ling Shuang, who was dressed in black and exuded a cold and elegant aura, he drooled and stood up to approach her. I've already instructed the branch city to prepare a place for us to rest. Let's go over first. We can talk about the rest later. Mayor Ku said as he gestured towards Feng Zhou. Yes. Feng Zhou responded and walked forward. However, as soon as he took a step, he paused and looked at a certain direction thoughtfully. Seeing Zhang Xian stop in his tracks, guild leader Ku asked, "What's wrong?" "No." She shook her head and continued walking forward. Ling Shuang held Lao Bai's hand and followed behind her. The group of people headed towards the black market branch. Not long after, they disappeared in front of Yuyun restaurant. In the shadows, Hui Lang and Ying Yi looked at each other, then looked at their master and asked, "Master, are we not going to capture the ghost doctor?" "Who told you that I'm going to capture her?" Yama Lord glanced at the two of them. With a flick of his sleeve, he turned and left. Seeing him leave, the two of them were stunned. Hui Lang lowered his voice and asked, "Master, didn't you come here specifically for the ghost doctor? Didn't you want to capture her? Then what are you doing here? Don't tell me it's just to see her." Ying Yi glanced at him and said with an expressionless face, "I think you should ask Master about this question." As soon as his voice fell, he also left. Chapter 264. Following their departure, the entire Yuyun restaurant fell into silence. No one spoke for a long time. After glancing at each other, they all hurriedly dispersed. On the other side, Fengjiu, who had come to the courtyard prepared by the black market branch to rest, changed out of her blood-stained red clothes. After bathing, she walked out and came to the courtyard. "Mistress, I had people prepare some food. You should eat first." Leng Shuang looked at her recovered appearance and was very happy. He said, "If the old master and the others know that Mistress' face has recovered, they will be very happy. Although I was captured by the people of Yandian, I really gained a lot from this trip." She smiled as she brushed her red clothes and sat down at the table. Seeing that the dishes on the table were all her favorites, she couldn't help but smile and look at Leng Shuang. "Leng Shuang, it's good to have you by my side. Look, I don't even need to tell you what I want to eat." She picked up her chopsticks and started eating. She said, "Sit down and eat with me. I can't finish it all by myself anyway." "No need, mistress. I left a portion in the kitchen." He came to the table and helped her ladle a bowl of soup. "Right, what happened to the Medicine Appreciation Assembly?" she asked as she ate. She didn't ask around recently, so she didn't know if the guild was awarded first place. The black market took first place. As Leng Shuang spoke, she looked at her, who was eating, and paused for a moment before continuing, "But mistress, during these days when you were captured, your medicine was being auctioned at a high price outside. Because of this, it can be said that the name of the ghost doctor has been heard in almost every major city during this period. This should be the work of that Yama Lord. Although I don't understand his intentions, it's not bad for me." Thinking of the Yama Lord, she remembered that Lu family had summoned the cloud-swallowing beast, but it didn't come. "Leng Shuang, did you see a sacred beast when you came?" Leng Shuang thought for a moment and shook his head. "I didn't see it, but I heard a roar. At that time, we were already in the city." "Oh, I see." She nodded. She felt that the holy beast would not have appeared for no reason. There was also that Yama Lord. He had eyes and ears in the Six Paths City. It was impossible that he did not know about the commotion in front of Dawn Cloud Restaurant. Perhaps her intuition wasn't wrong. He should have been nearby at that time. However, what was he trying to do? If he wanted to capture her, he had many opportunities to do so, but he didn't do so. And that holy beast, she clearly heard the roar, but it didn't appear, so she guessed that this matter was related to the Yama Lord. Because too many things happened today, Fengjiu went to bed early at night. Leng Shuang originally wanted to stay in the yard, but Fengjiu called him back to rest. As for Chairman Ku, he felt that something was wrong today. After sending Fengjiu to the yard to rest, someone told him everything that happened in front of Dawn Cloud Restaurant. Chairman Ku, who knew the whole story, didn't speak for a long time. He only felt that it was inconceivable. He didn't dare to believe that the ghost doctor dared to make an enemy of a mid-level family by herself, and even won a complete victory. Chapter 265. Almost at the same time that the black figure entered the room through the window, the originally pitch-black room lit up a little, and a gentle voice with a hint of laziness came from inside. "Yama Lord, it's the middle of the night. Why are you not sleeping at home? What are you doing here?" Hearing this, the Yama Lord's deep eyes moved slightly, and the corners of his lips curled up slightly. In a low and magnetic voice, he said, "You knew that I was coming." As soon as he finished speaking, he walked into the room. One step at a time, 2 steps at a time, he got closer. "Yama Lord, I'm not wearing clothes when I sleep." He stopped in his tracks, and the smile on his lips deepened. His deep voice was like mellow wine, with a hint of intoxicating charm. "It's okay, I don't mind." Fengjiu, who was inside the room, twitched the corner of her mouth. She turned over and leaned against the head of the bed. She saw the black figure walk in, and a pair of deep dark eyes with a hint of light fell on her body. He raised his eyebrows slightly, as if to ask, "Didn't you say that you weren't wearing clothes?" She squinted her eyes and smiled like a sly little fox. She smiled proudly and arrogantly. "How can I be undressed when I know that you're coming, Yama Lord? So, I'm sleeping with my clothes on tonight. Waiting for me?" He came to the bedside and stopped, standing in front of the bed, and looked down at the woman sitting on the bed hugging the quilt. Although she was still dressed in men's clothes, tonight, perhaps because she had been resting earlier, her black hair was let down. Looking at the silky black hair scattered behind her back, and a few strands fell on the side of her cheeks, adding to her charm and enchanting, his eyes gradually deepened. Fengjiu, who was hugging the quilt, suddenly felt uncomfortable under his deep gaze. She smiled embarrassedly and asked, "Yama Lord, why are you looking for me?" Hearing how she addressed him, the Yama Lord frowned. "Am I very old?" Fengjiu was speechless. She only wanted to say, "Yama Lord, you're getting the wrong point, okay? Am I very old?" He asked again, as if he was very sensitive to this question. A pair of deep black eyes stared at her tightly, as if he would not stop until she gave him a satisfactory answer. "Hee, you're not old, not old." She smiled embarrassedly, thinking that he was crazy to take this question seriously. The Yama Lord stared deeply at her. His scorching gaze landed on her tender face. His eyes flickered slightly as he spoke with a stern expression on his face. "I am 25 years, unmarried." Ha! When she heard this, she looked at his serious face and couldn't help but laugh out loud. She quickly covered her mouth with her hand to stifle her laughter and coughed lightly before saying, "Well, Yama Master. With your looks." No, I mean. Yama Lord." He interrupted her, and looked at her with a complicated and twinkling gaze. He had already said it so clearly, but she still didn't get it. Hearing this, Fengjiu was stunned. She blinked and said blankly, "Isn't it just that you're 25 years old and unmarried?" "I got it." Seeing this, the Yama Lord's face darkened. She didn't know if he was angry at her for not understanding, or angry at himself for not confessing. Chapter 266. What are you doing? His sudden action startled her. She widened her eyes and instinctively pushed her hands against his chest to prevent him from pressing down. However, that sudden masculine scent and that charming handsome face that suddenly enlarged in front of her still made her heart suddenly thump. The Yama Lord stared at her with his deep eyes. He placed his hands on both sides of her and his entire body enveloped her, trapping her under his body to prevent her from escaping. Looking at her shocked expression and smelling the fresh medicinal fragrance that belonged to her, his gaze deepened and his throat rolled. His deep voice carried a trace of magnetism and hoarseness as he said, "Do you really not know what Ben Jun wants to do?" Fengjiu looked at the magnified handsome face in front of her and couldn't help but swallow her saliva. She lowered her voice and said, "That, Yama Lord, we're both men. It's not very good for you to push me off the bed like this. People will misunderstand if they see it." Although she felt that he was quite a feast for the eyes, this man was filled with a dangerous aura. She was afraid that if she provoked him, she would only cause trouble for herself in the future. Moreover, his strength was not something she could predict. She couldn't beat him, so it was best to not have anything to do with him. "Are you a man?" A trace of a smile flashed across his deep black eyes. It disappeared in a flash, so fast that it was impossible to notice. "Of course," she said in a clear voice, but under his gaze, she felt a little lacking in confidence. The Yama Lord looked at the exquisite and beautiful face beneath him, and his breathing became heavier. At such a close distance, he could even hear the sound of her beating heart. Looking at her moist little mouth opening and closing, he realized that he couldn't hear what she was saying because all his attention was on her delicate and delicious red lips. He really wanted to kiss them and have a taste of them, and the thought in his mind, the impulse in his heart, he did as he was told. His whole body gradually pressed down, and his gaze became deeper and more passionate as it fell on those alluring red lips. Fengjiu was stunned. Looking at his gradually lowering face, she stared at him in shock. Was this man really the bearded uncle who had fainted after she accidentally kissed him in Jiufu Forest? When did he become so shameless? Seeing that sexy thin lips were about to kiss hers, she couldn't push him away with her hands on his chest. It was as if a mountain was pressing down on her. Seeing this, her eyes turned and she immediately called out. Uncle! The word uncle had indeed caused the king of hell to freeze. His gaze, which had been fixed upon her red lips, was lifted and he saw the little woman looking at him with an aggrieved look on her face, as if he had done something unforgivable. No matter how thick-skinned he was too embarrassed to continue. Uncle, although you're a man, you shouldn't do with me. I'm only 15 or 16 years old, I'm just a little grass that has just emerged. Don't you feel embarrassed to eat a young grass like me? Hearing this, the corners of the Yama king's lips twitched uncontrollably. His handsome face instantly turned black as he swept an icy glare towards the little woman who had an innocent look on her face. His heart was filled with anger but he could not vent it. Are you saying that this old bull shouldn't eat a young grass like you? Chapter 267. Hee, I didn't say that. She smiled embarrassedly. Seeing his dark face and angry eyes, she quickly said, Get up, it's not nice for two men to be like this. Hearing this, the Yama lord was so angry that he laughed. He took a step back and took out something from his space. He stuffed it into her arms and turned to leave with a dark face. Fengjiu was stunned. Before she could react, she touched a soft fur. Looking down, her eyes lit up. Wow! Where did you get this puppy? It's so beautiful. The white furry little thing in her arms was chubby and looked like a meatball. Its snow-white fur was a little fluffy. At this moment it was staring at her with its pair of dark blue eyes. Looking at its little appearance, she couldn't help but grab its fur and rub it. Puppy! She called out happily. Suddenly, she thought of the Yama lord who turned to leave. Looking up, he was already gone. I really couldn't tell that he would give me a puppy as a pet, she muttered to herself. She didn't care about him. Instead, she rubbed the puppy's fur and said with a smile, I already have Old White. How about you call me Little White? As her voice fell, she seemed to think of something and said, Little White doesn't seem right. Old White's previous owner was Little White. I'll just call you Little Ball. She patted its little head and decided on its name. Fengjiu, who was holding Little Ball, didn't see that the little thing lying in her arms had a pair of blue eyes full of anger. However, it didn't dare to do anything to her and could only obediently be a puppy. The next day, when Ling Shuang saw her master holding a meatball in her arms, he was slightly stunned. However, he didn't ask and only said, Master, breakfast is ready. Fengjiu sat down to eat and fed Little Ball some food. However, Little Ball arrogantly turned its head away, obviously disdainful. Seeing this, she didn't care. After breakfast, she handed Little Ball to Ling Shuang and went to the front yard to talk to Chairman Ku about what to do next. In the main hall, Brother Ghost Doctor, you're finally here. Come, sit. Chairman Ku asked for tea and refreshments to be served. After Fengjiu sat down, he said, Our black market really has to thank you this time. If it wasn't for you, we wouldn't have been able to get first place this year. It's just that I feel very sorry for letting Ghost Doctor get kidnapped by the people of Yandian and get frightened. As soon as he finished speaking, he smiled at Fengjiu, and said, I have specially prepared a generous gift to thank you, Ghost Doctor. He clapped his hands, and 2 guards walked in with a tray. Fengjiu looked over and saw that the tray was covered with a red cloth. He couldn't tell what it was, so he didn't say anything. He just watched quietly with a smile on his face. Chairman Ku stepped forward and lifted the red cloth. He smiled at Fengjiu and said, "This is a deep-sea red jade coral. It's one of the best corals. It can be used for ornamental purposes and has a calming effect on the mind. Moreover, this red jade coral is full of spiritual power. If placed in a bedroom or a place for cultivation, it can help improve your cultivation. It's pleasing to the eye. It's indeed a good thing." Fengjiu nodded, his gaze lingering on the dazzling and beautiful red coral. He looked at the second item. Chapter 268. President Ku looked at the sky silkworm's snow robe and said, "To be exact, this is a magic treasure with defensive abilities. It can withstand 3 attacks from a Jindan cultivator and 1 attack from a Yuanyin cultivator. As long as you wear it, it will automatically expand or shrink to the size of your body. With this snow robe, little brother, if you encounter danger in the future, you will have more protection." Seeing these 2 gifts, Fengjiu's expression softened. He looked at Chairman Ku and cupped his hands. These 2 gifts obviously cost Brother Ku a lot of effort. "I thank you in advance." Hearing him call him Brother Ku, Chairman Ku was overjoyed and laughed out loud. "As long as brother likes it, as long as you like it." Saying so, he took out another item from his sleeve and smiled at Fengjiu. "Those 2 are my thanks. This is the reward for helping the black market win first place this time. Brother, look." He opened his palm and revealed an exquisite and luxurious boat. "This is..." Fengjiu looked at him in surprise. This is a high-grade flying magic treasure. It can be big or small and can accommodate hundreds of people. It is fully equipped and has everything you need. It can be called a luxurious flying boat." Chairman Ku saw the surprise in his eyes and smiled. "With this flying boat, brother can go back to the country of glorious sun whenever you want. Not only that, you can enter any country below the 5th class with this flying boat as long as you register." Fengjiu took a look and smiled. "In that case, I will accept it." This thing was like a modern plane. It was convenient to go anywhere. It was too good. Judging from the price of magic treasures here, this flying boat could be considered a priceless item. After all, even the royal family of the country of glorious sun did not have such a luxurious thing. Receiving such a valuable gift made her a little embarrassed. So, she took out a small bottle from her space. "Brother Ku, this is the spirit condensation liquid I concocted. Brother Ku, find a time to drink it. It should help you break through your current level." Spirit condensation liquid. Hearing this, Chairman Ku was a little excited. He knew from the black market that there was a spirit liquid called spirit condensation liquid in the medicine that he had concocted recently. City Lord Chang had broken through the threshold that he had not broken through for a long time after drinking a bottle of it. Even though he was the president of the black market, he had only heard of the spirit condensation liquid and had never seen it before. He did not expect to know that a bottle of spirit condensation liquid was given to him. Fengjiu smiled. "Yes, it's the spirit condensation liquid. Actually, I still need to trouble Brother Ku with something." President Ku, who was holding the spirit condensation liquid, was so excited that he was in a trance. Hearing his words, he immediately asked, "What's the matter?" "Brother, please tell me. As long as I can do it, I will definitely not refuse." He knew that it was better to have a good relationship with him than anything else. Spirit condensation liquid. This was an advancement panacea, and even a single bottle would cause a mad scramble in the outside world. Now, not to mention the one thing that he needed help with, even if there were 10 things that he needed help with, he would help out. "I need some books on alchemy. I hope Brother Ku can help me find them." That's not a problem. I'll send it to you later." Chapter 269. Fengjiu smiled and said, "Medicine and alchemy are all from the same family. I don't think it will be difficult to learn. Ha ha ha, with your talent and abilities, I believe that you will become an outstanding alchemist. Don't worry, leave the book to me. He patted his chest and said. He asked the two guards to put the things aside and let Fengjiu keep it first. He continued, yesterday evening, after I came back, there were many people who wanted to visit you, but I turned them all away. I believe that the news of you challenging the Liu family alone will soon spread. It will definitely add to your reputation as a ghost doctor. He looked at Fengjiu, who was dressed in red, and his eyes were full of admiration. I didn't expect that not only are you outstanding in the field of medicine, but your cultivation is also so outstanding. Even your appearance is so good that few people can compare to you. You are really blessed by the heavens. Hearing his series of praises, Fengjiu's face was full of smiles. She said, Brother Ku, if anyone comes to visit, please help me to reply. I don't want to see anyone recently. Sorry for the trouble. She bowed, kept the things, and left first. Back in the courtyard, she happily took out the luxurious flying ship and showed it to Ling Xuan. Look, this is a flying magic tool. In the future, we can go back by ourselves. This small ship can actually carry hundreds of people. I just saw it, it has everything. It is really a must-have for a long trip. Master, are you planning to go back? Ling Xuan also came to the table and looked at the small flying ship. There is no hurry. I still have things to do here. Oh right, help me get a map of the Qingtang kingdom. As she spoke, she glanced at the courtyard and saw the little thing sitting in front of the door looking at her. She couldn't help but smile. Little ball, come here. She hooked her finger and called out. Ling Xuan responded and went out to help her find a map of the Qingtang kingdom. The little thing with fluffy white fur squatted there and stared at her. After a while, it slowly walked to her feet. Good boy. Fengjiu smiled and picked it up. She put it on the table and rubbed its fur. She said, it doesn't look like a puppy. It looks more like a spiritual beast pet. Ow. Little ball moved its mouth and howled. After glancing at her, it lay on the table and ignored her. Little thing, you are still being arrogant. She chuckled and flicked its head. She could not help but think that since the king of hell had given her such a small thing and did not pursue the matter of her taking his 1,000-year-old ginseng, did she have to do something? She couldn't help but sigh when she recalled that Yan Zhu and uncle were the same person. I knew it. How could there be so many people who were infected with the 1,000-year-old cold poison? She had long guessed that the two of them might be related, but she didn't expect them to be the same person. On the other side, in a courtyard, Hui Lang and Ying Yi, who were watching their master eat breakfast, looked at each other and quietly moved outside. When they came outside, Ying Yi lowered his voice and asked, What do you think is going on with master? He went to find the ghost doctor last night. Why is his face still so dark? Could it be that the ghost doctor didn't give him a good look? Chapter 270. Then in your opinion, what should I give her? Of course. As soon as the voice came out, Hui Lang looked at Ying Yi, who had lowered his head and couldn't help but stiffen his body and turn around. Master. Why was he so unlucky? Every time he talked about master heard it. Say it, in your opinion, what should I give her? The Yama Lord didn't get angry and looked at him as if he was also thinking about this problem. Seeing this, Grey Wolf secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Grinning, he said, Master, in my opinion, the ghost doctor likes valuable things. You see, even if he sneaked away, he also took our medicine tower's 1,000-year-old ginseng, right? So I think that instead of giving a small pet, Master should give something like a magic tool or spiritual treasure, which can be used by the ghost doctor at a critical moment. Hearing this, the Yama Lord's eyes flashed slightly. She likes valuable things. In her opinion, she shouldn't be short of money. After all, a bottle of her medicine can be sold at a sky-high price. However, something like a magic tool or spiritual treasure is doable. So, after glancing at Hui Lang, he turned and walked back. Seeing that his master had returned to the courtyard, Ing Yi let out a sigh of relief. He patted Grey Wolf's shoulder and said, "Do you know what kind of pet the master gave you? Isn't it just a pet? That's a cloud-swallowing beast. Master didn't kill it, but gave it to the ghost doctor, because he wanted it to follow the ghost doctor and protect her." Cloud-swallowing beast. The one from the Lu family? Hui Lang stared in shock. Yes, I heard Master say that it's a sacred beast at the peak level. In time, it can evolve into a mythical beast. That's not something an ordinary pet can compare to. Master really cares a lot about the ghost doctor. Unfortunately, why can't the ghost doctor give birth to a woman? Hui Lang shook his head and sighed. He couldn't let go of the fact that his master fell in love with a man. This was outside. If they went back, with Master's status, it was impossible to be together with the ghost doctor. After all, Master was so high and mighty. Not to mention the fact that the ghost doctor was a man, even if it was a woman, she might not be worthy of their master. However, he dared to say it out loud, but he didn't dare to say it out loud. At noon, in the courtyard of Fengjiu. She was putting the results of her research in the morning into a medicine bottle. This was a pill that she had specially developed for the uncle, the Yama Lord. It could be used to suppress the 1,000-year cold poison in the body. It could be considered as her return gift to him. "Master, don't you only concoct medicine?" Leng Xuan watched her put the pinky-sized pill into the bottle. He couldn't help but be surprised because he had never seen her make pills before. "I know how to make pills too, but it's more troublesome, so I don't usually do it." She closed the bottle and said with a smile, "But this is a return gift to someone. The medicine wasn't very good, so I used pills. After spending an entire morning, it's finally done. To be able to make Master put in so much effort, I think that this person's relationship with Master is not ordinary." "Relationship?" Fengjiu raised an eyebrow and shook her index finger. "Wrong, there's no relationship. However, I cheated him of many things, so I have to give something in return." Brushing her robes, she stood up and stretched, saying, "I'm going in to rest. Don't let anyone disturb me." "Yes." Leng Xuan replied. He saw a figure suddenly appear with a whoosh. His body instinctively went on alert, but he heard the other party's voice. Chapter 271. Fengjiu stopped in his tracks and looked over, looking at the newcomer in astonishment. "Hui Lang. What are you doing here? Last night, his master had come, and today, this fellow had come. They, master and servants, could come and go as they pleased in this courtyard as if there was no one else present." Hui Lang glanced at the cold and elegant face of the black-clothed girl with a fiery figure. His brows furrowed imperceptibly as he thought to himself, "The ghost doctor already has a master, but he still brings such a cold and elegant girl with him. What is he doing to Master? Why doesn't Master scold him? Is he just going to let him do as he pleases? Isn't he afraid that at his age, he won't be able to resist the temptation of a beauty by his side?" Dispelling his thoughts, he looked at the red-clothed Fengjiu and said, "Ghost Doctor, I'm here to deliver something on behalf of my master." As he spoke, he stepped forward and took out a small 8 trigrams plate and placed it on the stone table, saying, "This is the 8 trigrams heaven and earth plate, a high-grade magic tool. It can be used to suppress and can also be used as a flying device. And this is the Phoenix dagger. Master said that the ghost doctor likes to use daggers, so he specially sent the Phoenix dagger over. This dagger can cut through iron like mud and is also a magic tool. If you encounter any battle, it will definitely be of help to the ghost doctor." Fengjiu looked at the 2 items on the table and his eyes flashed. He looked at Hui Lang and asked, "These things are worth a lot of money, right?" Hui Lang's mouth twitched as he glanced at him and said stiffly, these things are priceless. Master said that you should keep them and not sell them. Hearing this, Fengjiu raised his brows. Why does he keep sending me things for no reason? And such expensive things. What is your master plotting? Hearing this, Hui Lang's eyes widened. You don't know. It can't be. He still doesn't know that master likes him. Then what has master been doing all this time? Unrequited love. One-sided torment. His master was so outstanding, could it be that the ghost doctor didn't see his master's boundless charm? Thinking about how his master had been so distracted because of him, yet he still didn't know his master's feelings, he felt bad for his master. From the looks of it, his master hadn't even touched his little hand. If he could, he really wanted to knock the ghost doctor unconscious and carry her back. However, even though he had the heart, he didn't have the guts. After all, the ghost doctor wasn't someone to be trifled with. If he wasn't careful, he could lose his life at any time. Therefore, after he glanced at him, his face darkened, and he said, Master only ordered me to deliver the item. Now that the item has been delivered, I have to go back. Goodbye. As soon as he finished speaking, he turned to leave, but was stopped by Fengjiu. Wait. He turned around and asked with an unfriendly expression, Is there anything else? Give this to your master. Tell him that although it can't cure the 1,000-year cold poison, he can take one pill every month when it flares up. It can suppress the cold and prevent it from spreading throughout his body. She took out the bottle of pills and handed it to Hui Lang, asking him to pass it on. This can really suppress the 1,000-year cold poison. Hui Lang was a little excited, and also a little incredulous. It had to be known that the people in their medicine building had been researching for a long time, but they hadn't been able to refine a suppressive medicine. But he had actually done it. Fengjiu slanted his eyes at him. What? Are you doubting my ability? No, that's not what I meant. Ghost doctor, don't worry, I will definitely pass this on to master. Many thanks, goodbye. He happily put away the bottle of pills, cupped his hands in greeting, and with a tap of his foot, he left. Chapter 272. Fengjiu put away the two things, yawned and went back to her room to rest, while Ling Shuang sat cross-legged in the courtyard to cultivate, and the furry Chiu was lazily lying on the stone table in the courtyard. After an unknown amount of time, Fengjiu, who was sleeping soundly, suddenly opened her eyes. When she saw the black-robed man sitting by the bed, she patted her chest and sighed softly, You scared me to death. Why are you here again? Her tone was not good, because he appeared without warning, making her feel very insecure. And because his strength was too unfathomable, she did not even notice his arrival. Perhaps it was because he received the bottle of pills that she specially developed for him, but the Yama Lord was in a good mood. Looking at the woman who was patting her chest and glaring at him, he raised his eyebrows slightly, the corners of his mouth raised slightly, and there was a trace of imperceptible smile in his low voice. Is that all you've got? Fengjiu turned over and got out of bed, gathered her clothes and walked out of the room, asking, Why are you here again? She came to the table and poured a glass of water to drink. As if thinking of something, she opened the door and looked outside. Seeing Ling Shuang standing in the courtyard, it was obvious that his acupoints were sealed, and he could not even speak. She could not help but sigh, walked out, and unsealed his acupoints. Mistress, he. Okay, you don't have to block him when you see him in the future, you can't stop him. You don't need to wait here, you can go first. She waved her hand, indicating that he should leave first. Yes. Ling Shuang looked at the Yama Lord, then turned and left. Seeing her sit down in the courtyard, the Yama Lord also stepped out, sat opposite her, and looked at her with an arrogant attitude, and said in a deep voice, This lord came to ask, Are there any dietary restrictions for the pills you developed for this lord? Pfft. Hearing this, before Fengjiu could say anything, Hui Lang and Ning Yi, who were hiding in the tree, couldn't help but burst out laughing. Realizing that it was inappropriate, they hurriedly closed their mouths. However, their laughter had already been heard by the two people at the stone table in the courtyard. Fengjiu glanced at the Yama lord and then looked at the tree. You brought two tails. The Yama lord's face darkened. He glanced at the two of them coldly and said, Why aren't you going back? Seeing this, Hui Lang and Ning Yi immediately responded and then quickly left, not daring to stay and peek. Cough cough. The Yama lord coughed lightly, glanced at her, and said, Also, I'm here to thank you. Hearing this, she waved her hand and said with a smile, You're welcome. I took the reward and helped you refine the pills, so we're even. I don't owe you anything. However, hearing this, the Yama lord's face turned ugly. His originally calm face became tense and dark. He looked at her smiling face, frowned and asked, Do you really not want to have anything to do with this lord? Fengjiu looked at him in confusion, Why should I have anything to do with you? Hearing her words, the Yama king pursed his lips and stared deeply at her. He had prepared a bellyful of things to say, but when he saw her like this, he was unable to say a single word. He pursed his lips and sat there silently for a while. Then, under her puzzled gaze, he stood up and left without saying a word. Chapter 273. Hui Lang and Ning Yi, who were waiting in the courtyard, were discussing in a low voice, guessing what would happen to their master this time. Unexpectedly, after a few rounds of conversation, they saw their master stride in. The two of them immediately stood up and greeted him respectfully. Master. Yan Zhu glanced at them indifferently. Just as he was about to enter the room, he paused and turned back to look at the two of them. He said in a deep voice, There is grass growing in the backyard. Go and pull it out. Remember, pull it out yourself. As soon as he finished speaking, he ignored the two people behind him and walked straight into the room. Pull out the grass. They looked at each other in astonishment and twitched the corners of their mouths. With the strength of the two of them, there were not many family heads in the 6th Dao city who could compare with them. But to ask talents like them to go pluck weeds? Do you think our master was provoked again? Hui Lang murmured, the astonishment on his face still lingering. Let's go. It's better than being thrown to the cool breeze gang. Ning Yi patted him on the shoulder and took the lead to walk to the backyard. Needless to say, their master must have been provoked by the ghost doctor again. But, pity them. Therefore, the shadow guards in the dark couldn't help laughing, watching their leader and Hui Lang squatting in the backyard to pull out the grass. Yama Lord, who had returned to his room, became angrier and angrier. He couldn't understand why he had come back. He was like a resentful little wife. Did he want to wait for that heartless little woman to coax him? He didn't even need to think about it. That woman was probably eager to stay away from him. The more he thought about it, the angrier he became. Not long after he sat down at the table, he stood up and was about to go out. He planned to go to her place again and make it clear to her. However, when he reached the door, he paused again. His hands, which were about to open the door, froze. His deep eyes were filled with contemplation. He pursed his lips, snorted, and turned back to sit down at the table. If he went to her now, she would definitely say, Why are you here again? Thinking of this, he suppressed the impulse in his heart. He had just come back, and now he was going to her again. What had he become? Even if she wanted to throw herself at him, she didn't have to be so enthusiastic, right? Therefore, he endured it. However, he had a stomach full of unspoken words. Moreover, he was biased and angry. This entire day, he felt as if he had eaten deer penis but couldn't find relief. He was restless. The next morning, he washed up and went out. He saw Hui Lang and Ning Yi coming in. He glanced at them and asked, Are you done with weeding? Master, it's done. The two of them hurriedly responded. Only the heavens knew that they had squatted for the entire day yesterday. When they woke up this morning, their backs were sore. Suddenly, Ing Yi's eyes fell on his master's black robe. He opened his mouth, but held back and just lowered his head. "Stay in the courtyard," the Yama lord said, then leaped away. As soon as he left, Ing Yi raised his head. "Hui Lang, did you notice?" "Pay attention to what?" Hui Lang walked to the stone table and sat down. "The black robe that master is wearing today is actually new." Ing Yi was a little speechless. He only knew that his master had once again refreshed his understanding of him. It turned out that a man who fell in unrequited love was actually so scary. Hui Lang was also stunned. It can't be. He didn't notice this just now. Chapter 274. The courtyard in front of him was completely empty. She was nowhere to be seen. He walked into the inner room and looked at the neatly arranged bedding. His gaze darkened as he turned around and walked out, heading straight for the main hall. Early in the morning, guild leader Ku heard that someone was looking for him. After washing up, he went to the main hall. As soon as he entered, he saw a man in black robes sitting on the main seat. His handsome face was slightly solemn and his entire body emitted the aura of a powerful cultivator. The aura of a superior being naturally emanated from his body. Just one look was enough to make guild leader Ku's heart tremble. Who was this man? Just his aura alone was enough to make guild leader Ku's heart tremble. Such a person could not be found in the Six Paths city. Perhaps because the other party's aura was too powerful, guild leader Ku couldn't help but step forward and bow. He asked, "May I know who you are? Where's the ghost doctor?" Guild leader Ku paused for a moment, then said, "He left yesterday. He didn't say where he went. From what I heard, he seemed to want to take a look around." As soon as he said this, the black-robed man's expression darkened even more. It was as if he was filled with a powerful rage. The atmosphere in the main hall also dropped. Standing in the middle of the hall, guild leader Ku felt his entire body turn cold. Even breathing became difficult. He couldn't help but feel shocked. Who exactly was this man? However, before he could ask, a black figure flashed past him. The black-robed man who had been sitting on the main seat had already left. The cold and oppressive atmosphere in the main hall also returned to normal. When the Yama lord returned to the residence, Hui Lang and Ing Yi came forward to greet him. "Master, there's an urgent letter from the ancient capital." Hui Lang handed over a letter. After the Yama lord saw the mark on the letter, he waved his hand. A wave of spiritual energy swept past and the mark disappeared. He then took out the letter. There were only 2 words written on it: "Return quickly." He closed his hand and opened it again. A wave of spiritual energy visible to the naked eye surged in his palm. In the next moment, the letter in his hand was reduced to ashes. He pursed his lips and a dark light flashed across his deep eyes. In a deep voice, he ordered, "Take care of everything here. We're heading back to the ancient capital." "Yes." The 2 of them replied and quickly left. On the other side the sun was gradually setting in the west, and the sky was getting dark. Fengjiu and the others, who had left yesterday evening, were now leisurely walking on the mountain path. Fengjiu was riding on Lao Bai, Leng Shuang was riding on a horse, and Qiuqiu, who looked like a puppy, was riding on Leng Shuang's horse. Because Lao Bai refused to carry it. "Master, there seem to be 2 households not far ahead. Why don't we stay there tonight?" Leng Shuang said to Fengjiu as he looked at the faint lights not far away. "Sure, we're not in a hurry to go back anyway," Fengjiu replied with a smile. When they left, they took a spaceship and only got down after a while. The main reason was that they were not in a hurry to go back. Moreover, it was only a day and a half's journey from here to the country of Glorious Sun by spaceship. It was not far, so they were not in a hurry. "Lao Bai, walk faster. We'll get you something to eat when we reach the front." She smiled and patted Lao Bai's head. Suddenly, she thought of something and looked strangely at Chiuchiu, who was lying on the horse's back. When she left, she wanted to leave Chiuchiu behind and return it to the Yama Lord. However, when they boarded the spaceship, the little thing ran up as if it was afraid of being left behind. It hid in the innermost corner and refused to come out no matter how they called out to it. Chapter 275. In fact, it did not know that the Yama Lord had once told it that if it could not stay by Fengzhou's side to protect her, then there was no value in its existence. To think that it, a dignified peak-level holy beast, was actually threatened so openly, but it could not do anything to the human who threatened it. Thinking of the man whose strength was almost terrifying, Chiuchiu, who was originally lying quietly on the horse's back, could not help but shudder. It was also unlucky. It originally thought that it could finally be free after breaking out of the rock, but who knew that it would encounter such a perversely powerful man? Not only did he threaten it, but he also took a strand of its soul. If it did not listen to him, it would lose its life at any time. It glanced at the red-clothed young man with disdain. It couldn't tell what was so special about this human young man. Moreover, he was so weak that he could die. It was a great gain for him to be protected by a peak-level holy beast. When Lao Bai heard that there was food in front, its saliva flowed out, and it kicked its hooves forward, leaving behind a cloud of dust for the Leng Shuang and Chiuchiu behind it. Chiuchiu, who was originally lying on the ground, was choked by the dust. It was so angry that it sat up straight and angrily glared at the figure in front of it. This fat horse. It only knows how to eat. Why don't it just die from being fat? Not long after, when they arrived at the hillside not far from the two families, Fengzhou, who was in front, was a little surprised. She was riding on Lao Bai's back, and she was holding the reins. Looking at the place in front of her, her eyes flashed slightly. Leng Shuang, who had caught up from behind, came to her side. Seeing that she had stopped moving forward, he looked at the two lit houses and said cautiously, "Mistress, wait here for a moment. I'll go check it out first." He then jumped off the horse and was about to walk in that direction. "I'll go with you." Fengzhou landed on the ground and led Lao Bai down the hillside. However, Lao Bai seemed to be unwilling to go in. It neighed a few times, and its hooves kicked uneasily on the ground. Fengzhou smiled and gently stroked its head. She said gently, "It's okay, come with me." Senior White replied in a low voice when he heard this, and then he followed obediently by her side. Chiuchiu, who was lying on the horse's back, narrowed his eyes and looked at Fengzhou. He then looked at the two houses before following them without a word. There were only two households here, and both houses were lit up. Perhaps it was because outsiders rarely came here. A boy of about 4 or 5 years old was sitting by the door and playing with pebbles. He looked curiously at the red-clothed Fengzhou and black-clothed Leng Shuang as they walked over with their horses. He suddenly got up and ran into the room while shouting, "Father, Mother! Someone's here, 2 of them. TSK. Chi." Lao Bai's nostrils flared as he stomped his hooves in annoyance. His head twitched slightly as he tried to pull Fengzhou away. Seeing Lao Bai's strange behavior, Fengzhou's eyes moved slightly. She looked at the house, and then at the other house not far away. She slowly closed her eyes, and no one knew what she was thinking. Until the boy who had run in earlier came out again. He stood by the door and looked curiously at Fengzhou, Lao Bai, and Chiuchiu, who was lying on the horse's back. At this time, a young woman stuck half of her body out of the half-closed door. She looked at the people outside and asked softly, "Where did the guests come from?" Chapter 276. But she suppressed the shock in her heart and did not show any surprise on her face. Instead, she revealed a smile and said, "We were just passing by and it just so happened that it was getting late." Seeing that there was someone here, we wanted to stay the night. Is that okay? The woman was silent as she looked at Fengjiu and Ling Shuang outside the door. Then she looked at their mounts and hesitated. Mother, let this beautiful big brother and big sister stay here. Yang likes beautiful big brother. The 4 or 5-year-old little guy pulled on his mother's sleeve and gently shook it. His young and tender voice was soft and his beautiful and clear eyes were filled with hope, pleading, and desire. It made people unable to refuse. When the woman saw this, she revealed a loving expression and patted the child's head. Then she said to Fengjiu and Ling Shuang, please come in. My humble home is simple and crude. If there is anything I can't call, please don't take offense. She opened the door and gestured for them to enter. Because the door was opened, Fengjiu and Ling Shuang could see that there was only one oil lamp on the table in the room. Then, sorry to disturb you. Fengjiu cupped his hands and bowed. He had Ling Shuang tie up Old White and the horse outside before he stepped into the room. Although the room was simple and crude, it was very tidy. Perhaps it was because there was little sunlight in the room, but the room was a bit cold, especially at night. Big brother, do you want to drink water? The little boy climbed onto a chair and looked at Fengjiu. He pointed at the water bottle on the table and said, there is water in here. Yang can drink it if he is thirsty. Fengjiu's gaze fell on the woman. He watched as she lightly walked towards the back. Her posture was gentle and her steps were light. Her actions revealed her good upbringing. It was obvious that she was not an ordinary woman from the countryside. But, in a place like this, how could there be such a family? She withdrew her gaze and calmed herself down. She looked at the little boy in front of her. Although he was an elf, his eyes were dark green. She sighed in her heart and asked, are you called Yang? How old are you this year? Yes, my name is Yang. Big brother, today is Yang's 4th birthday. Mother is cooking red eggs in the back for Yang. The little boy leaned on the table and smiled as he looked at the handsome Fengjiu in red. He said crisply, Big brother is so handsome. Yang has never seen anyone more handsome than Big brother. Oh, so today is your birthday. She looked at the excited little boy with sparkling eyes in surprise. After thinking for a while, she took out a night pearl the size of a grape and handed it to him. She smiled and said, here, this is for you as a birthday present. Wow! This bead is so beautiful. It's glowing. The little guy looked at the bead in surprise. He reached out to take it and happily slipped off the chair and ran to the back. He shouted excitedly, Daddy, Mommy, Big brother gave me a glowing bead. At this time, Ling Shuang came to Fengjiu's side and looked behind. He lowered his voice and said, Master, this place doesn't feel right. Are we really going to stay here? There were only 2 families here. The other side of the house had their doors closed and the lights were lit, but there was not a single person in sight. In this family, only the child was slightly normal. There was also something wrong with the woman. There was also the man of the house. They had not seen him since they entered. Logically speaking, this should not be happening. Chapter 277. She glanced at Ling Shuang and asked, Where's Qiuqiu? It's on the horse's back outside, refusing to get down. Let it be. It should be fine. You, on the other hand, don't run around at night. As she instructed, the curtain moved slightly and the little boy ran out. Big brother, mother said this is very precious. Yang can't accept it. He handed the luminous pearl back to Fengjiu. Although he said that, the child had never seen such a thing before and his eyes were filled with reluctance. Fengjiu smiled and said, It's fine, just take it. As soon as he said that, the woman walked out with several red eggs. There's nothing much to serve at home. Both of you, have a red egg first. The woman's voice was soft and gentle as she looked at Yang Yang with motherly love. Big brother, can Yang Yang really accept this pearl? He blinked and looked at Fengjiu, then looked at his mother. This luminous pearl is very precious. The child doesn't know any better, so please accept it. The woman said softly and motioned for Yang Yang to return the pearl to Fengjiu. It's fine, it's just a little toy for the child. Keep it. Fengjiu said with a smile and told Yang Yang to keep it. Seeing this, the woman bowed to Fengjiu and said, in that case, this woman will thank you on behalf of my son for this gift. Fengjiu's eyes moved slightly when he saw the woman's curtsy. He smiled faintly and didn't say anything. Not long after, the woman left Yang Yang to accompany Fengjiu in front and went to the back. Yang Yang, who lives in the house next door? Fengjiu asked the child who was eating an egg. It's grandfather and grandmother, but grandfather and grandmother's health isn't good, so they often stay in the house. Oh. Then what about your father? Is he home too? Last time, a bad guy came and injured father. Father is now recuperating in bed. He handed a red egg to Tongjiu and said softly, brother, you eat too. Mother said that you can only grow up safely if you eat red eggs. Hearing this, she smiled slightly, took the egg, peeled the shell, and ate it. After a while, the woman brought a dish, a piece of meat, and 2 bowls of rice. She said to Fengjiu, there's nothing else in the house. The dish is wild vegetables, and the meat is wild rabbit meat caught in the forest. Young master, please make do with it. Then, he took Yang Yang away, leaving Fengjiu and Ling Shuang in front. After she left, Fengjiu looked at the dish and meat on the table, as well as the 2 bowls of rice. Then he said to Ling Shuang, sit down and eat. Although this family is a little strange, they don't have any ill intentions towards us. Hearing his master's words, Ling Shuang nodded and sat down at the table, picking up the rice to eat. As the night deepened, the surroundings seemed to become colder. Even the sound of insects outside seemed to be very clear due to the silence of the night. It was so clear that there was a hint of strangeness. Fengjiu and Ling Shuang were arranged to rest in the side room. In this strange place, it was impossible for the two to have a good rest. Thus, Ling Shuang kept watch while Fengjiu sat cross-legged and closed his eyes to cultivate. The first half of the night was peaceful until the second half. The whistling of the wind hit the door and windows, making banging sounds. The whistling of the wind outside was a little scary. Chapter 278. The two of them immediately opened their eyes and stood up. However, before they could do anything, they heard a gust of wind howling with grief and indignation. Why? Why won't you let us go? Why? It was an old and hoarse voice with a hint of sharpness. It was extremely clear in the night. It wasn't a woman's voice, but rather an old man's. However, Fengjiu's eyes moved slightly. She looked outside and said to Ling Shuang, don't go out if it doesn't concern you. As she spoke, she sat down at the table. Hearing this, Ling Shuang was slightly startled. He nodded and stood guard behind her. Outside, a middle-aged man wearing a Taoist robe stood in the air with a whisk in his hand. His body surged with powerful spiritual energy, as well as a holy light that was slightly different from spiritual energy. On the ground, an old woman and an old man supported each other. Their faces were filled with tears and unwillingness. What filled their bodies was not rich spiritual energy, but waves of yin wind. Let you go. Ha ha ha, what a joke. The middle-aged man standing in the air laughed. Humans and ghosts walk different paths. If I hadn't met you, I would have let it go. But now that I've met you, I'll definitely take care of you. As soon as he finished speaking, he waved the whisk in his hand. A wave of spiritual energy accompanied by a sharp airflow and holy light shot downward. In the air, a sharp sound could be heard. The old woman and the old man who were originally standing on the ground were also enraged. We didn't harm anyone in our lives, but we died with resentment. Even after we died and turned into ghosts, we didn't harm anyone who passed by. But you, a person who talks about righteousness, won't even let us go. You keep saying that you'll take care of us. Since that's the case, we'll kill you even if our souls scatter. The old man shouted with grief and indignation. He seemed to have been a cultivator when he was alive, but after he died, he became a ghost. The resentment on his body did not dissipate, and the yin energy was extremely heavy. As he shouted, his whole body floated up. The claws on his hands grew longer and grabbed at the Taoist priest. In the room, Leng Shuang couldn't help but widen his eyes when he heard this. He looked at Fengjiu and asked in a low voice, "Master, are these people ghosts?" Fengjiu tapped on the table and said softly, "Not entirely. Not all." Leng Shuang was stunned. He suddenly remembered that his master said that only the child was normal. He couldn't help but ask, "Master, you mean that only the child is human?" "Yes." She responded and said, "Before I entered the door, I only sensed the aura of one person. It was that little boy. His parents and grandparents should all be dead, because I didn't sense any signs of life here other than us and the child. But how is that possible? If it's a ghost, why would it have a child with it?" Leng Shuang felt incredulous. In this world, there were people, immortals, and naturally there were ghosts. It was because of the existence of these three things that the three realms were formed. I didn't see the other three ghosts, so I don't know what they are. But Yang Yang's mother shouldn't be an evil ghost. She doesn't have any ill intentions towards us. Even the food we ate tonight was something that we can eat, and not the sand created by the ghost eyes. Hearing this, Leng Shuang remembered that when the woman served the vegetables and meat, she specifically said that they were wild vegetables and rabbit meat. Obviously, she knew that his master knew that she wasn't human. "Master, then they're here for?" "Probably for the child." Chapter 279. From the sound of it, there seemed to be another man's voice outside. The two guessed that it was Yang Yang's father. Thinking of this, Fengjiu closed his eyes. No one knew what he was thinking. Then, there was a knock on the door, followed by a soft call. "Young master." Hearing this voice, Leng Shuang cautiously moved forward and stood in front of Fengjiu. "What's the matter?" Fengjiu motioned for Leng Shuang to step back. "Young master, please open the door and let this woman in to talk." Hearing this, she motioned for Leng Shuang to open the door. Leng Shuang paused for a moment before opening the door. When she saw the woman outside, her palms turned cold. This woman was not a human, but a ghost. Thinking of this, she swallowed her saliva and took a step back. She was not afraid of a human, but a ghost. Fengjiu looked over and saw the pale-faced woman carrying the sleeping Yang Yang in her arms. She knelt down in front of her with a plop. "Young master. What are you doing?" Fengjiu frowned and looked at her tear-stained face. That old Taoist came again. He said he wanted to take us in, but in fact, he came for my Yang Yang. Yang Yang was born with a spiritual pearl in his stomach, but the pearl could not be removed. This old Taoist said he wanted to refine him into a human pill to cultivate. We have no other choice but to come and beg young master. She sobbed softly and said, "I know that young master is not an ordinary person. You must have noticed that we are ghosts and not humans. However, although we are ghosts, we have never harmed anyone. We only stayed here for the sake of our child. Our family of 99 people is only left with Yang Yang. Young master, please, please help us." She sobbed softly. Her words were filled with helplessness and despair, which made Fengjiu's heart sink slightly. She wanted to stand by and watch, but she couldn't resist her pleading. If she didn't help, not to mention these ghosts, even the child's fate would be full of misfortune. Although she was cold-blooded by nature, the child was innocent. How could she bear to watch with folded arms? Her gaze fell on the child who was sleeping soundly. It turned out that he had a spiritual pearl in his belly. No wonder, when she came in, she saw that the child was full of spiritual energy. Although his face was pale and thin, he was able to stay alive while interacting with these ghosts. It turned out that it was because of the spiritual pearl. After a slight pause, she looked at the woman and asked, "How do you want me to help you?" Hearing this, the woman was delighted and hurriedly said, "I only ask that young master take my son away and let him grow up safely." "Leng Shuang, take the child," she ordered softly, implying that she had agreed. "Thank you, young master." "Thank you, young master." She hurriedly thanked and handed the child in her arms to Leng Shuang with a smile. Looking at her sleeping son, her heart was filled with reluctance. She looked deeply at the child and said to Fengjiu, "Young master, quickly leave from the back." With that, she ran out. Leng Shuang, who was holding the child, was startled and asked, "Master, are we really taking him back?" She did not think that her master would really help that ghost. "Our family doesn't lack food. If we take him back, we'll take him back. What's the big deal?" Fengjiu said disapprovingly. "He has lost his parents and family at such a young age. He is quite pitiful." Leng Shuang looked at the sleeping Yang with pity in her eyes. She and her younger brother depended on each other for survival. Her younger brother was taken care of by her, but this child had lost his family at such a young age. She could not help but feel pity for him. Ah! You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.